I'm here to stand on my soapbox and proclaim that to the world.
On this show.
This is the hottest show on the planet right now.
What's the debate?
Ain't no debate.
What's going on, YouTube family? Thank you for joining us. What's going on? You are tuning in to the Vulcan Soapbox, where we reason at the highest level and exalt logic at the highest level. That's what we do on the show. Understanding how to acquire or validate your knowledge. We do this through the system, philosophy, epistemology, and critical thinking helps enhance your perspective. And that's what we're doing with my esteemed colleagues here. We got new guests on here. Shout out to Victor, man. What's going on?
What's going on, man? Glad to be here. Representing the Accountable Masculinity University brand, and ready to participate in a healthy discussion. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Focused on solutions, man.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Victor. What the funk is this? What's going on, man?
How you guys doing? Appreciate the invite. Greetings from Germany, and happy to have these conversations.
Word. Dankeschön.
Oh, I don't speak this Deutsch, man.
You said that last.
I've already had one white religion and language put on me. I'm not learning a second one.
Okay. Yeah, man. The one and only, we call him the advocate. Other names. What's going on, Vulcan?
What's going on to my people out there, all the folks out there, ready to be logical and be intellectually rigorous and have some integrity behind all of that. So I'm excited to get into the topic. Like, subscribe, share. Those of you on the panel right now, it's live right now, so you can go on. You can share right now. I'm about to get into some healthy topics, some stimulating conversations. We got some intellectual juggernauts on, so I'm excited about this. Let's get to it.
Yeah, is it me before we get into it? Did y'all hear some audio issues with Vulcan? Sound like it was like staticky a little bit. Okay,
actually, the static I thought it came from your end when you first started, but I haven't heard any static since then.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
so,
yeah, just let me know. Keep me up to date, y'all. Peer review.
I still hear it.
It might be a little staticky.
Okay,
but like it's not scratchy. It's coming in, but it just sounds like something's vibrating.
Hey. Oh yeah, by the way, shout out to Static Shock, one of the few black superheroes we had.
All right, so let's get to the first video. First video is by this young gentleman on the panel with us. Let's go ahead.
Let's get it.
All right, I'm about to put this video on the screen. Let me know when y'all can see it. All right, here we go. How's it looking on y'all end?
Fantastic.
All right, here we go. Full screen. All I ask is just please mute your background while the video is playing. All right, let's get into it.
What's up, folks? It's your boy Victor Vinziant with Accountable Masculinity. I got a couple of questions and a couple of thoughts, and I just decided to record a quick video. At what point do we call a certain behavior of mental illness? I know it's a lot of undiagnosed mental illnesses out there that people are either afraid to put their finger on and they stamp, but I got a couple that I want to bring up. So like when you're talking to someone and they keep interrupting you, at some point, is that not a mental illness? Especially if they desire for understanding and clear communication. Okay, that's one. And two is poor sexual discipline not a mental illness if they can't explain why they keep having sex with the wrong people? So to rehash, people that keep interrupting you at some point in desire of healthy communication, is that not a mental illness? And people that keep having sex with the wrong people, is that not a mental illness? Let me know what you think.
All right, family. Y'all heard the question? Let's go ahead and start with what the funk is this? Is that a mental illness? Cutting people off while they talking. Oh, you still muted.
Short answer, I say no. Okay. And then I could explain later on, or do you want everyone to answer first and then we all explain?
Yeah, we could do that. That's even better.
Okay.
You said no.
I would say short answer, no.
All right,
on both.
We come back to explain. That's good. Victor, yes or no? And
Yes.
then we come back around. Say yes. So we got no with the phone, and Victor says, yes. Well, I answered before Vic.
I got to hear it again. My audio went out after the video
Yeah.
played.
That's fine. I got you. Let's go ahead.
But no, I don't got to hear the video. I just got to hear what the question was.
Oh, the question in the video is that a mental illness? Victor, you want to restate the question for?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a mental illness.
No, I said the question so both can hear.
Oh, the restating the question.
Yeah.
People that have a desire to have healthy communication with you, but they keep interrupting you, is that not a sign of mental illness?
So yes or no right now?
To me, it just depends. To me, it depends on why they're interrupting you.
Don't you do that? No, we don't do depends here. We ain't sponsored yet. We not. You can't hit us with it depends.
Okay.
That's funny. You said we not sponsored yet. That's funny as hell.
Go ahead, chime in on this. What the phone? Go ahead, chime in. Your reasons.
Oh, no. Have a Vulcan also answer about the sexual of part 2.
Oh, well, let's start with this one first, and then
start with this one.
Yeah, let's start with this one.
Okay. If people who cannot, if you're trying to have a healthy dialogue and they cannot stop interrupting you, is that a sign of mental illness? I think that is a bit of a projection, because again, in our culture, I don't think that the solution. I don't think the people really want the healthy dialogue in the first place. I think that a lot of us get endorphins on the arguments, so we end up coming into these conversations in bad faith. And yes, I understand that from one perspective, you want to have healthy conversations and the person interrupting it, but that's not mental illness. That's the programming, and that's our culture. We've learned this at an early age to not dissect people's points. We've learned to interrupt all the time, even in a place of worship. When we're agreeing with the pastor, we are still inputting our verbal cues and interrupt. Yes. So that's been programmed in us at an early age in our culture. But I do not think that actually means that person has a mental illness. I think it just means that this is the program that they've been programmed with.
The program, yeah, that's something we definitely gotta. That's gonna come up more in our conversation. That program, and that's very important. Let me get to these comments. Help the Bear said, "We here." Shout out to Help the Bear. Also, Didi Red Temple said, "Hey,
what up, Didi?
Hey,
she been riding with me for a long time. Appreciate her, man.
That's what's up. Appreciate you."
So real quickly, are we saying that interruptions are wrong?
No, they're just a behavior thing.
Okay.
Well, is it a behavior thing or is it a mental illness?
Well, poor behavior is a sign of mental illness.
You muted, Vulcan. You muted if you was.
That's why I went down that path with it, So
okay. So go ahead and explain why.
You can't hear me or you can't hear me?
No, not you. What the fuck?
I was talking to Vulcan.
Well, can y'all hear me?
Okay, good.
All right, go ahead and explain why you say yes, Victor. Let's get into it. Victor, see, like his screen frozen. Okay.
Right. No, he's not. I still see him blinking. He's not frozen.
No. That means I was right. When people's screens freeze, that's a sign. That's how you know.
Wrap the podcast up, y'all. It's all over. We got the Victor.
But I'll go ahead and while he's getting himself fixed, I'll go ahead and maybe jump into it a bit. And again, I understand his train of thought of thinking that. Again, it makes logical sense. But if we start applying the fact that this person's interrupting me, it's because they have a mental illness, I do believe that it's going to supersede the importance of mental illness and getting treatment in the first place. Because in that case, you would say that damn near 90% of Black people have a mental illness. And though that might actually be the case with some of the things we've been programmed with, I think it's a slippery slope to make something that low of a bar to say that person has a mental illness. And I think it's very subjective because, again, it's been our programming. I think a mental illness is something that's kind of something that you're going to have for the rest of your life, versus the programming can be rewired and refocused, and you can improve upon that. That's just my thought about it. So that's why I don't really want to label someone saying oh, you have a mental illness. Even if you're having a conversation with somebody and then you interrupt because you have a legitimate point, and then that person comes back to you and says, oh, you have a mental illness, and that's why you keep interrupting me.
Well, let me ask you
Then
this. Then,
that's going to end up leading to even
can y'all
more
hear me?
arguments.
yeah, I
Y'all
can
hear
hear.
me? Okay, good. Go ahead.
Well, let me ask you this: as far as when you said programming, that includes culture, how you was raised. That's what you mean as far as programming and all. Okay. Oh wow. Okay. So Victor said he had a power outage. Okay. All right. Okay. He's coming back right soon. All right. So let's get Vulcan here. Well, I do want to chime in. I would just say it could be mistyped. I mean, there's so much questions I want to know as far as why somebody's interrupting too, because somebody could be. I do this sometimes when I'm talking to women, and not just women, just other men. But I know this is more frequently with women where I'm having a conversation with them and it tends to derail. I will interrupt to get the conversation back on topic. I would do that. Bring my guy Victor in there. So it depends on Victor back.
We got hated on just then, man. I was about to start spitting.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's a mental illness, in my opinion, because we grade people on behavior, man. They create institutions on behavior. The Department of Corrections, mental institutions, behavioral science. At some point, if you got a constant repetition of a certain type of behavior, then they start grading you off of that. So they deem nobody could tell if you're I don't know, like let's say if you got ADHD or autism or something like that, they grade you off of your behavior and how functional you are. So if you can't communicate with good faith and either you're a deceptive person or you got a mental problem at some point. When they grade people that are narcissists, they talk about their behavior and how they treat other people, because you have to have something to audit against. So if you can't have a straight conversation with somebody, and when you think about the worst person to communicate with in your own family, is that person narcissistic in most cases? Won't let you get a word in, doesn't care about anybody else's point of view, can't accept correction, won't apologize, very selfish. At some point, we grade that person's behavior. Now, and I get it. Sometimes, like when you're talking to people, you might have a compatibility issue. Let's just say we might get along on camera, right? But we might suck if we're trying to have regular discussion around a drink or two or something like that, right? And then you grade whether or not you're just compatible. Now, there's a chemistry issue. That's one thing, because personality conflicts going to exist because we're human, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we're coming at if all things being considered, being done in good faith, like I have no reason to operate in bad faith with you, thinking that you're going to do something to me or I'm going to do something to you, then how come you can't listen to me? You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right.
Because your behavior determines if you can establish trust with someone, right? But if you're constantly creating offensive situations, then it's going to start speaking to your psyche at some point. Like, man, this person's unhealed, got a lot of underlying trauma, never went and got it worked out. It destroys their opportunity to connect with other people over and over and over again. Right now, we got to start looking much deeper at why does this person keep repeating these negative patterns?
All right. I'm gonna bring everybody around so we can.
Mm-hmm.
What I took from you, behavior issue patterns, especially if they're doing this often, you are leaning more towards this could definitely be a mental illness because this is a pattern, behavioral issue that's popping up. I see what the fuck. I see you thinking about what he was saying. I do want to get your thoughts on that too. Let's bring Vulcan in here first.
Yes, sir.
All right. So what's your thoughts? Agree or disagree with Victor? Because you got any questions? Feel free to ask.
Well, I would just say, I was trying my best to take notes and follow the conversation. So for one, I want to get into like the pros and cons of interruptions briefly, and then we can expand that out into it being a mental disorder with somebody who has a habitual behavior or habit of cutting people off in mid-conversation. So some of the cons, obviously, of interrupting somebody is, I'm just going to give three off the top of my head. One is it makes it difficult to come to a full understanding because you're cutting them off mid-thought. So maybe this is a thought that hasn't been expressed, and so the understanding is going to be limited. The other reason for interruptions, of course, it can be triggering to the other person. So now, if they don't feel like they're being heard, they're less likely to hear you, and it can send the conversation spiraling in a negative direction. Because and then the third thing, which could still be the second one, is that once you start interrupting, they start interrupting you, then everybody's going to have their own definition of when it's good and bad to interrupt somebody.
Your sound's out. Your sound is out. Vulcan, unplug and plug it back.
Hello?
Yeah, that's
Hello?
better.
It's good?
Yeah, maybe you should try to pull the mic a little closer to you, just a little bit.
All right, it's closer. Closer.
Yeah, that might
It's
sound
good.
static. All right,
That's better. Better now.
A lot better, actually.
Okay. Okay. So I don't know what y'all heard or didn't hear. Did y'all hear any of it?
We heard everything except for like the last 6 seconds of you speaking.
Okay. So yeah, in short, I was just saying, I was giving the pros. One is you can stop the understanding because you're cutting people mid-thought, so you don't get the full thought. So it'd be hard to still man their conversation or to repeat back to them what they meant if you didn't hear all of what they said. Number two, it could be triggering psychologically. So now you're spiraling in the downward direction because they don't think that you even have the intent of really understanding what they're saying, much less coming to some type of common ground. And so now you lost your ability to really reason with them and connect with them in that point and maybe convert them if you happen to be right. And the third thing is that once you start that type of interaction, both people are going to be doing it. So now it's debilitated because both people are going to be interrupting each other. And you can't say, hey, stop interrupting me, because what are they going to say? You started interrupting me first. So the precedent was already set. And because both y'all never really established the grounds of interruptions, good interruptions and bad interruptions, you already have other conversations you're juggling in the midst of it. You're not going to be able to add on there when it's good and bad, especially once it's already gotten to be, you lost the benefit of doubt. So now it's very contentious. So that's on the negative side. On the pros side, I would say sometimes you already know where somebody's going. Sometimes when the devil's in the details and somebody's going and mentioning 3 or 4 or 5 different points at one time, and you don't interrupt them, what ends up happening is you forget some of their prior points. Maybe you've been able to identify a certain weakness in their line of reasoning, one of their premises or whatever the case may be. You may forget it because you're trying to still be in the moment and focus on their current point that they're making, which means you may lose a prior point. And because especially people when they ramble, they might not even know what they said earlier. I've had that happen to people where I let them ramble and I just sit there and be quiet. And then I saw the one little string that was hanging out that if I could have pulled it, it would have unraveled their entire point. And then both of us would have had an epiphany and they would have been better off in their life. But because I let them go, because I didn't want to interrupt them or be perceived as rude, I forgot that little strand. They couldn't word it the same way the second time. And neither one of us were able to get to that point. So that's some of the pros of interruptions. And then also, so I would recommend people interrupt people. If you're going to interrupt them, then still man them. Say, hold on, if you don't mind, let me interject here. Let me repeat back to you what your point is.
People like active listening and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Vulcan. People in the chat, if Vulcan is static, put a 1 in the chat for us, because I'm hearing static. Somebody else is telling me he's static. What about y'all? And what about y'all on the panel? Are y'all hearing the audio issues?
I think it came through fine. I thought. Yeah.
So y'all hearing static? Okay.
Yeah.
If y'all hear if Vulcan is static, you just put a 1 in the chat. But go ahead, Victor, if you want to respond to that.
So let me add some context on that, because Dion says, I think you are referring to extreme examples of it. Is it a mental issue or low emotional IQ? Yes, all of it. And that's the part of it. Because this is the thing right here, what I like to say is that when I'm talking about these things being problems or behaviors, I have divided my work up into disciplined thinking and undisciplined thinking. And there are people that's going to make undisciplined decisions unconsciously because of the conditioning that they received in their environment. And what's normal for you might not be normal for someone else, you know?
But if you don't mind, let me interject. What about the pros and the cons that Vulcan mentioned? Do you agree or disagree with that?
I full-heartedly agree with everything he's saying, because he can stand behind, why he would, see the necessity in interrupting. Yeah, because some people can go for a long time And if you don't have your note-taking material, and this is too, thinking about it, like, what's the nature of the conversation? Are we having a conversation that's rooted in good faith, or are we having something candid, like we're going back and forth about sports where we just talking shit to each other? That's completely different. You know what I'm saying? But if there's a big difference in trying to diffuse a conversation, teach someone something, or just having like a candid discussion about some activity that we, you know what I'm saying, in the middle of. Like, I expect people to interrupt each other when we're having, like, let's say a sports conversation, you know, my team versus your team, whatever, you know, however that might go. But like,
well, let me, how about this?
Yeah, give me a scenario.
Okay, well, I was gonna go another direction because
okay, go ahead.
Vulcan did say pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, do you think it's a mental illness? We haven't got your answer on that.
So I don't mind addressing the mental illness part of it. So
okay,
having a habitual behavior of interrupting people is not a mental illness, but it can be signs or symptoms of a mental illness. And Victor's already pointed out bipolar, ADHD, and the list goes on and on and on and on.
Narcissism.
Now, I don't want to get into how much I really believe in a lot of those psychobabble we have today, but just taking that at face value, yes, it can be symptomatic of something else. I mean, most African Americans, I think, were diagnosed with ADHD at some point in time in their life.
Yeah, especially
shout out to Dr. Umar.
Shout out to Umar. Let's bring what the funk in this. Thoughts to chime in what Victor and Vulcan are saying.
Okay, I'm looking at this on a larger scale. Think of CNN. Think of Fox News. Think of people who might have a high IQ, and they have these discussions, and when we watch it, it's full of interruptions. It's full of disrespect. It's full of emotional people. And I don't know if that's necessarily meaning that they have a mental illness, because, again, they're rewarded for doing that. They're rewarded by their constituents behind them, or whoever is their backing. They want you to interrupt. They don't want to have these logical conversations. They want, because they know the consumers who are watching these things are going to judge, oh, well, this person was louder and funnier and quicker, so that person must be right. So James, in actuality, that person might be very intelligent by interrupting and playing that part, because he's not letting the person he's debating with get their point across. So again, that means that maybe that person doesn't have a mental illness. Maybe that person is very aware of what they're doing. And again,
Jason.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say one thing about the high IQ type people, or maybe slightly above average intelligent people, in being engaged in conversations that may be a little bit more rudimentary, is that they tend to interrupt because, one, you only have a finite amount of time, especially if you're on a show, a podcast, whatever the case may be. And the more people you got to share the talking time with, it's like, and I tell people this all the time in person, I'm talking too fast right now. But part of the reason I talk so fast because I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to get my point out real quick and concise so I can throw it back at you again, because what we all came here for is the interactions and us to grapple with the different concepts and ideas and explore it in a new and meaningful way for us and the audience. So if somebody can cut me off and go, Vulcan, are you saying this, this, and this? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, then take it. Just go ahead and take it where you want to take it now, because I don't need to keep on elucidating on a point that you already know exactly what I'm talking about. So we can advance the conversation forward. So I think that happens sometimes amongst intellectuals, because let's get to the good parts already. If we understand the foundations, let's go.
Shout out to Help the Bear said no, usually uneducated.
But that's not the majority. That doesn't happen as a majority. Again, that's a minority. So again, that means we're saying the majority of people have a mental illness, because whether low income or high Ivy League, when they have these sort of discussions, it seems as if they all end up kind of having these it's not like The Great Debaters, that movie, the Denzel Washington, where people actually have good faith debates. That's not happening in 2025 anymore. What's happening?
I want to stick on that point that you made. What the fuck? When you said that means majority of people have a mental illness. You want to respond to that, Victor?
Yeah, I think
if that's what we're saying, Jason. What the fuck? If that's what we're saying,
that's exactly what we're saying, because most people aren't trained. Most people are, like, when I'm talking about interruption and stuff like that, I'm talking about from conflict resolution. I can understand a debate panel and stuff like that. That's a big difference. We put 2 hours to the side and we know we're gonna have some difference of opinion. Somebody's not gonna like the delivery. I'm talking about resolving conflict within your everyday life. You know what I'm saying? There's some people.
Well, when you say, and right now you explaining why it's okay to interrupt if it's a debate, but with conflict resolution, you're saying what?
You got to let people get their thoughts out.
Okay,
so
but
they
what?
can hear it.
All right, let me ask you this. So,
go ahead. Yeah,
what about what? All right, this is how I'm interpreting what Vulcan was saying earlier. This is me. Those rules still should apply even with conflict resolution. Like I can predict what you're saying. I could still man what's going on, what our conflict is to, and based on the limited time we have, it's appropriate to do this even with conflict resolution. What do you have to say to that?
I think it just depends on the person you're having a conversation with. And
Okay.
so what I mean is like everybody doesn't have the same level of emotional discipline. Some people take things personally, man. So when you're talking about conflict resolution, if you have more discipline than the other person to listen to them at length, because like some people don't respond the same way when you interrupt and you throw them off, they lose their thought, they get frustrated. It's like talking to a child. A lot of adults have the conflict resolution skills of children.
I think there's definitely a lot of truth to what you're saying, and especially people who are more extroverted thinkers. I mean, they speak as they think and think as they speak. And so they don't even know where they're going with it. And by interrupting them, even what's fascinating about this concept that you're bringing up, Victor, good point, is that even still manning doesn't work. Still manning for the audience out there. Straw man is when somebody tries to debate or argue a point that you're not making, that you haven't made. Still man is to explain what somebody's point is, your own words, and it shows them that you understand what they're coming from, what their point is. The thing is, with some people who are extroverted thinkers, they don't even know where they're trying to get to. If you still man their point, they still may not accept it because they don't even recognize their own point in different words. So I think to Victor's point, that could be more frustrating for them because they need that time to really process as they're talking. And you just got to be to take them hits. You got to just wait on it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other way around it.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, especially in romantic relationships. You see that.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
hold on for a minute, Vic.
Go ahead.
Let me go ahead and get these comments in. Dion Knight said, I like to record arguments. You and me both, brother. You and me both.
C-SPAN.
That used to be my nickname, Vulcan Game.
yeah, C-SPAN.
Shout out to Dion. Help the Bear said, I think people are conscious of why they interrupt. Okay.
It's a rhetorical device, a debate tactic to interrupt too. So it could be signs of a poor character as well. It couldn't have anything to do with a mental illness specifically. It could be just poor character.
Poor character,
I'm saying,
in my opinion.
You said,
well, when you start going out, like in the way that I'm framing this, right? I think people are either disciplined communicators or just disciplined thinking people in general, right? You make mostly responsible decisions 80% of your day, right? Then the other 20% you can't account for, meaning like some catastrophic weather event. It's like the power went out. You know what I'm saying? Stuff that's outside of your control, you know? But you're probably not thinking about doing something malicious to the other person, right? You're not thinking about doing subliminals with people. You're not thinking about gaslighting the other person. You're thinking about making your point and being received and then solving the problem. You know what I'm saying? You're not arguing. You're here to say, hey, look, you're trying to communicate your intent. And if the person can't operate in good faith in the conversation, then what's driving them to receive you with hurt ears? You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people have their ears already hurt. They came in looking for a fight because everywhere they go, they get in a conflict with somebody. We all know that person that plays victim, and that person that's on the victim side of everything usually has the same outcome no matter who they're talking to. And then we sit back and say, man, you know what is you? But what is up with that person that makes them communicate that way? They're starting to isolate themselves. You see what I mean? Communities are built off of like-minded thinking, and we go where we feel safe. Why would you go to some place that's already wired to this, like with people that's already wired to make you move into a defensive posture? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some places you absolutely go where you speak when you're spoken to. And then there's some places where the environment is permissive enough for you to interrupt, take the lead on something, if you're an extroverted person, right? But if you're always in a situation where you're having to over explain, or you don't feel heard, or something like that. If at some point you got that's a symptom of probably of a larger issue. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people have a
I
lot
would
of
just make it
inferiority and
this.
insecurity issues.
Yeah, I would just make a distinction between not feeling heard and actually not being heard,
Yeah,
because our feelings can betray us on that part. But I definitely get what you're saying. It's just that I think
and
a lot of people use the feelings part.
that's why I brought up the emotional discipline part. Some people were raised and conditioned not being heard by their parents, their mother, their you know, specifically, or their father specifically, never taken seriously, and then everywhere they go, they get the same outcome. So that lack of emotional validation can be frustrating for some people, to the point where they just don't even say anything, or they're in constant tussles with everybody else because they think someone's trying to grade their level of aptitude, their IQ. Everybody thinks they're dumb. You know what I'm saying? And then next thing you know, you got a villain origin story.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you bring up a really good point about the fact that people can go have those toxic environments that they're being, raised in and cultivated in, and so they kind of go out there with this defensive mentality, not feeling heard anywhere they go. Sometimes it could be something simple, like, you could be engaged in a conversation with somebody, and if you don't emote the way that they would expect you to emote, they don't feel heard. Like they're explaining something to them that's catastrophic, and you're like, okay, I get it. We can take care of this. Like, and if you're a manager, ever been a manager at a place before, you're told
manage people.
Yeah, you're told that whenever you're having conflict or some employees expressing conflict, you add to the content of the conversation, but you don't add to the emotional content of the conversation. So you're gonna stay stoic in that. And for some people, especially if you're dealing with romantic situations, if you're not showing the same dramatic response that they are showing themselves, they don't feel heard, because it looked like to them they register that is apathy at best, and at worst just complete lack of care and concern altogether.
That's a good point.
And so sometimes you see that happen. You just don't understand me, and it's like, okay, you're saying this, and this. You can repeat it back to them. You can explain it better than them. You can get into the ins and outs of it, and where it started and how it's going to end. But if they don't see that a certain demonstrative feelings-based response, then they look at it like, okay, you don't care, or you don't get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that.
I do want to chime in, because I'm gonna go ahead and say, because I think we could wrap this up and go to the next topic. I'm gonna go ahead and give my thoughts on it. I think that interrupting somebody could be misdiagnosed as a mental illness. I think that even on the show, the better you are at critical thinking, it trains your brain to be more in control of your cognitive abilities. So I think it could be cured. Other psychological issues, I think those are more extreme, but behavioral patterns, I think it can be fixed. That doesn't have to be clinically diagnosed. And I also think it's definitely a moral issue, a character issue of why a person not being considered somebody, knowing the app word and so forth. So that's my thing. That's my thoughts on that. Could definitely be misdiagnosed. I'm gonna get what the funk on this, and then go ahead. What the funk?
Okay, I'll be quick. To make it simple, from the way I'm analyzing it, I don't think you can diagnose and say that if someone's interrupting, they have a mental illness, because think of people in Congress, think of people in whenever you have groups of people, even with a foundation of, hey, we're not going to interrupt, human beings still do it. Whether it's and it's all cultures. I've seen it in Asian cultures when they get in their parliament, and it's always in African countries. It's always the same. There's always people interrupting, and I think by diagnosing and saying, well, if anyone's interrupting, you might have a mental issue, or I think that doesn't compute to me. And also, that I wanted to make this one point is that a lot of times the person might be interrupting because they don't want to hear what you're saying. And let's say if I'm in a situation with Vulcan, and you're trying to teach me something that I already know, or you're teaching me something that I don't really care about, but you have a power position somewhere over me. And so I don't want to lose my job, but I don't want to hear what you're saying. By me interrupting you, by you trying to, I'm frustrating you so you can just kind of go the fuck away.
Language.
Oh, sorry. I'm interrupting you because I want you to go away. Then you might think in your head, well, the Jason, he has a mental illness, and that's why he's interrupting me. And in reality, it's not that at all. It's just that I don't want to hear what you have to say. I think that's something a lot of times that women do in relationships. And when there's a conflict or something that you as a man are trying to bring to her, she's honestly probably just doesn't want to hear what you have to say. But then if I'm thinking, oh no, maybe she has a mental illness. See, it's not the puzzle's not fitting for me.
Okay.
And I'll land there.
All right, let's talk. Victor, tell me. Last thoughts on it.
I think the psychology field is so wide open with therapy and everything else in the last 5 years, and telehealth therapy and stuff. I'm not even a therapist, but I just been studying this stuff because social media has changed the way we communicate in such a way. It's like, what inspires people to go from comments to cars to pulling up in front of each other's house? You know what I'm saying? Comments, cameras, and cars, and next thing you know, somebody's engaged in some kind of violent conflict with each other from the way that people were responding. People that don't know each other, or even got limited access to each other in real life, but going to social media inspires them to bring conflict to fruition, you know, when they really don't care about each other and they don't have any equity established with one another socially, you know. So at some point, we have to sit back and say, is the consumer that reflects this behavior smart enough to use social media? Or does it inspire them to really act on the moral fiber of how they was raised and conditioned? Because I understand that this is a reflection of the conditioning, you know what I'm saying, of each person's individual household. So I understand why behavior can be corrected, but if it never goes corrected and it's sustained, then what?
Yeah. That's a talk, and this is what inspired me to do the show, because I think that those things could be cured. You can actually get in control of how you think. We just don't have the proper tools, or we don't understand the tools. What tools we can do to actually, what tools that can actually help us get better at conflict resolution. I will say this before I go to Vulcan. One of the things I noticed, one of the root cause of why our conflict resolution skills are really low, is because, especially in our community, we don't value freedom of speech. You're ready to engage in conflict with somebody because you don't like what they said. You see this online. This is our amendment right to say what we think, and in our community, it results very violently and deadly. Let me bring my guy Vulcan that closes out on this topic.
Yeah, so I just want to say, as far as this topic right here, if we're going to say that it could be indicative of a mental illness, that's fine, as long as everybody in the audience understands that the mental illness is not interruption. That's not a diagnosis clinically. So it would be, if somebody were to say that could be a sign of a mental illness, which is true. If you look it up, you'll see that that's one of the symptoms of certain mental illnesses. Then you got to do the rigorous intellectual work of figuring out which one. You got to get them all out there. I mean, with AI, it should be pretty simple. You got, okay, what one are you going to diagnose them with? You can't leave it at, hey, you're interrupting, so that's a sign of mental illness. Now you got to do the work of figuring out which one are you going to label it as. ADHD, bipolar, all the way down the line. But remember, once you do that, they've got to fit the other symptoms on there as well. So your work's still not done. So
couldn't it just be they have a lack of impulse control, which is not a mental illness, but that's a characteristic.
Well, the thing is, Dub, that's exactly what you and I are saying the same thing. I'm saying if somebody's gonna make the case that interrupting habitually is a mental illness, the work's not done. Now they got to figure out which one it is. If they're gonna make that case, because it couldn't, like you said, it could not be that at all. It could be just impulse. Work needs to be done, but that's another symptom of certain mental disorders too. So that wouldn't even get out. But it could be the fact that they're just an immoral person. I'm going to interrupt you because I don't care what you have to say, and I know it pisses you off. That's not, but maybe that could even be a mental issue. That could be some type of low empathy form of narcissism. Somebody can be narcissistic, somebody who's a psychopath. And there's different types of terminology that they have very low empathy and don't care about regard for other people. So it might still fall in that category. Other person can be just doing it with you because it pisses you off and not with anybody else. So your work's going to be cut out for you because you still got to figure out whether your diagnosis is correct, which is, I think, what your whole point is, right? Is that it could be other things other than the mental disorder, right? Yep. So yeah, I think we're all saying the same thing on that point. It's just either way, the work's not going to be done. You got to figure it out.
All right, more comment shout to Help the Bear said, "Thank Enos, you about to get deep." All right, for the audience, well, you know, when we do shows like this, we tend to have a debriefing afterwards, and cross-examination at its finest. I say it that way. Get rarely intense in those meetings. So
yeah.
Got Help the Bear hold to be accountable because you know we expressed this on the show before, so you definitely probably witnessed that on the show. All right, so Help the Bear also said when the funk hit the fan, all people going to jam. Shout out to Help the Bear. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm going to go ahead and pull up another video, and I want to get y'all. Let me stop this screen. And
as long as we know we never did the sexual discipline part, I'm cool with that.
Sorry, yes, that's the second part. You know what? I think it's best for us to play that video.
We'll play the other video and then come back to that.
Yeah. Let's play the same video we played, but the question about the sex discipline, so we can, you know, have the fresher conversation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
I mean, we didn't have to go back to it if y'all didn't want to. I'm just making sure we all knew that we did cover that part.
Well, we take a group vote. Who wants to? We can go ahead and go forward.
I think go ahead and play the other video first, the clip, and then we'll go. Then we can ask the other question because it's only a minute.
The other video referring to about guys witnessing their mothers.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right. That was a good video. All right. So. All right, fellas. Make sure all I ask for y'all is to mute your background while video is playing. Here we go. Make sure I got the right video. Oh, here we go. Share screen. All right. Let me know if y'all can see that. Y'all see it?
I don't see anything.
Why now? What about y'all, the rest of the panel?
Yeah, I can see something.
All right, here we go.
Girls who grew up with a naked mom are the true girls. I think that we view the world differently, and I think that we view other women differently.
That young lady proceeded to talk about if you grew up with a naked mom, you appreciate the woman body more, you a girl's girl. And I know she's talking to the women, but that had the totally opposite effect on me as a young man growing up with a naked mama. My mama was a big woman. I mean, she was a very big woman. And I'm like, she just walk around naked all the time to the point I thought it was normal. Being naked was normalized in my head until I at least became like in high school. I swear to God, I never seen a naked woman until I turned 18. And it did nothing for me. It did nothing. Man, this girl, we about to hang out, do our grown people stuff. Nothing happened, like nothing. I felt nothing. Very, very beautiful girl, very beautiful. But being naked is normalized in my head. Like I couldn't even do nothing with the girl because being naked is normal. Like I didn't feel nothing. So I'm looking at her, the girl looking at me. She's like, "What's up?" I'm like, "I don't know." I'm like, I think I'm gay because I'm like, you real pretty, but like seeing you, like you pretty, but it ain't doing nothing for me. Like right now, like when women be taking those beautiful ass pictures of them sculptures, art, like I look at a woman's body as a work of art. And art do not arouse me. Like, so whenever I look at a woman, it's like I'm looking at a painting, and like a painting do nothing for me. Like she's beautiful, but like I like words. I like words of affirmation. That gets me going.
Fellas, man. I just want to say, man, I'm sorry that man, that young man had to go through that. That's one of those laughing at, not to stop myself from crying. Let me get what the funk in this. So
what's your question?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm gonna go to my guy Victor on this.
I'll give you a minute.
Ask a question. Ask a question. What the panel and the answer.
How much impact do you think that conditioning has on a man's attraction template for women?
Oh, okay. Let's get what the fuck. Ooh.
Okay. I think it definitely affects it. But I also do think that though we had this, we're speaking about the naked mom kind of thing in the Black community, but even over here in Germany, the German women in their culture, they walk around their house naked all the time
And they
with
be
their
at the
kids.
public pools doing that. That's
Right. So, if we think about this from a global scale, okay, mothers in Africa with their kids. Well, I know for a fact they do the same thing because they do it here when they're with their kids.
Mhm.
So, in Asian culture, I know it happens in Asian culture. So, the naked mom thing, I think in the last week everyone's kind of focused on it in the Black community and as like it's abnormal. But when you really think about it, it's actually a norm. So now the naked mom on a global scale, is it affecting people in a negative way in the way that they choose their partners
Well,
in
that's
the
a good
future?
that point you saying. What the phone?
Yeah.
Would that be a better question for us to answer, Victor? How much the negative impact to scale it from there? Is that?
No, I think that's he's giving a macro opinion, of course, but like
I just want to narrow the question so we do a
I
better
think narrowing the
job.
question now, how does that impact the Black community? How does that impact our family structures, who we attracted to within, like that's why I say attraction template, right? And what I mean
I was about
by
to
that,
get there.
yeah,
Okay, go ahead with the
that's what
phone.
he was working on.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's on me there. Go ahead with the phone.
Okay, so on a global scale, is it everyone haven't seen the naked mom? Is it affecting who they end up having partners with in the future? I would say absolutely yes. This is why I think a lot of times maybe people do end up procreating with not same sex, I'm sorry, but same race, because they're already conditioned to have a level of attraction to their mother and it transfers into the woman that they're with. Now, what happens, I think, a lot of times in the Black community is that we, as Black men, we have a negative experience of our mother's femininity and we don't see it. Therefore, a lot of us don't compute and say, well, my mom was naked, and a lot of times they were overweight. So I don't think that a lot of times those men will say, "Oh, my mom was big and overweight. I want to get a big one." That doesn't make sense. I think what happens a lot is that actually a lot of mothers end up pushing their sons to want other types of women and other types of energies because of them being bombarded with the programming of strong Black independent woman. And as those men start to date women like that, they realize, I don't like this. I don't feel comfortable in this. And either they swallow that pride because they already made a baby with that person, or they already had a commitment with that person, and now they're living in a prison in their mind because they're not really fulfilled and happy. Or they didn't make that mistake and they end up starting to try to find different versions of their mother in a different skin, in a different culture.
Okay.
And so that's my
All right, let's bring Victor back in. Go ahead and give us your answer.
So I kind of beta tested this whole topic over the last year, right? And I had men that would inbox me and says, I never knew why I was attracted to BBWs, but I grew up with my mom being naked. And I started reading what you were saying, and it definitely impacted my attraction template. There's a significant group of men out there that this is the norm. There's a level of incest in the Black community that's more prevalent than what we talk about. And this is a level of it in that regard, because when we start talking about how we end up getting sexually compatible with each other, you know what I'm saying, with the opposite sex, and why do loud women or overtly expressive, what people would like to call masculine behavior in women attract submissive men? Because a lot of men that grow up without their fathers end up being with, overtly expressive women, you know what I'm saying, without calling it what other people would call masculine, because there has to be a compatibility factor, because the way you're conditioned in your household, the way that you see your mother express her behavior is gonna, that's why, like, when you talk to somebody, you're like, man, you remind me of your mom. You know what I'm saying? I think we got similar childhoods that make us relatable to one another. You got to have something to talk about. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's a big difference between like a person that you would be attracted to that grew up in a house with or without a father.
So and this is back to what you said earlier, as far as the condition and the environment the child is raised in does help shape their attraction to the women they're actually looking for at times, right? Or
Yeah.
actually influence who they're looking at.
Yeah.
Let me bring Vulcan in here. What's your thoughts on all of this? Agree or disagree? You know, and to answer what the question was earlier.
I mean, we covered a lot of different ground. I don't know if there's anything one specific I want to focus on, but I guess I would just start off with just giving my general views on people walking around with no clothes on within the confines of their home. I've had Haitian friends who would do that. I've heard of different stories of doing it. People that, you know, their mom walked around with no clothes on, or was just the norm. I think that they seem pretty fine. I'm sure there's got to be a difference as W.T. Funk put it. But I think that, as far as I know, excuse me, not being aware of the literature that is associated with it, I would just say it probably is negligible. People that I'm aware of that went through those kind of things, they had pretty normal life. There was some embarrassment, because if you're going to be in the Western context, American context, at least anyway, you're definitely different than other families. So people can't just come inside your house the same way. You know, if there's any kind of hint, and eventually it kind of shows. I found out because eventually it shows something happens, whether you can't do something you want to do because of it, or something happens where you like, maybe somebody slips up one day and you see something that you probably shouldn't have seen or didn't think they see, that they have to explain themselves, and you see the embarrassment. So obviously it's mostly like psychological things and maybe cultural distinction have to be made. But that's as far as I'm aware of. I mean,
can I make one point real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
And ask, do you guys think that because I'm kind of rethinking on some things, and when the father's in the house, that this doesn't happen.
Bingo.
He checks it, because he's gonna not shame the wife. But what are you doing? So
It's not even a thing.
It really wouldn't be. It would be very hard pressed for me to imagine this now. Now, again, I'm thinking on a global scale. Even in German culture, and the women love being naked. They do, but they wouldn't do it with the man in the house and the kids. They'll have the robe. They might have a nipple slip, but they're gonna be covered. Mm-hmm. But when the man's not in the house, that's when I think the nakedness happens, where it's bare ass walking around. I don't care. Do you guys agree with that, or what do you think?
That's exactly the point.
I agree with you. Especially different cultures. You mentioned that, and Vulcan mentioned that. In the Western culture, you don't typically see that, so it's definitely not going to happen as often.
I think this is globally. I think in any culture, if there's a man in the house, the mom's not going to be walking around naked around the kids. I can't think of a culture where the men would be fine with that. Can you?
I can only imagine. No, I'm not.
I mean, I definitely think it's the case. I mean, I mean, going back to the African examples you've given, I heard of French examples of that where, you know, let's say it's all girl kids. The mom may still walk around with no clothes on, with the husband
while the man's
present.
in the house, or while the man's out and working.
While the man's in the house, I've seen it to where the men have been out the house and in the house when that stuff tends to occur. Now, I don't know if I've seen it when the man in the house and there's little boys around, but I know I've seen it when little girls were around, or not seen it, but I've heard of it happening.
The feedback that I've gotten off just a social media post is that it's affected a lot of different things, man. And because like I grew up in a 2-parent home, I didn't grow up seeing my mom naked. You know what I'm saying? It's not even a thing. You know what I'm saying? So when I saw this clip, I was like, holy, are you wait a minute now? You know what I'm saying?
So Victor, to our earlier topic, you asked a question as far as penis discipline, that are you saying this could be the root cause of why guys don't have that type of discipline?
No, I think it's a characteristic of it. I think it's like everybody has a profile. You can make certain assumptions when because everybody has a profile. Everybody has a like there's a stereotype, a profile, a signature, certain things let you know how someone was raised. You know what I'm saying? The conversations they hold, the things that they participate in, the activities that they think. Like there's a big difference in growing up. Okay, how many of y'all played Monopoly growing up?
I did.
How many of y'all shot dice growing up? You see, so like those are things you either learn outside. But who taught you how to shoot dice? Was it with your uncles? Was it your parents that taught you, or was it just a social thing when you got around? You know what I'm saying? Like gambling is a cultural thing. If you grow up around people that gamble, you're gonna gamble and you're gonna gain enough interest, you know, into that level of conditioning. This is no different. This is about activities and behaviors and what brings people together, right? So generally speaking, the people that probably grew up seeing their mom naked was probably raised by single parents.
All right. We'll get these good point. Victor, sorry about that. Let me get Shelly D. Shout out to Shelly D. Pardon me, gentlemen. Please allow me to intervene. I believe everyone's doing a wonderful job from observation. Y'all have respectfully intervened with each other. I'm sorry. I doubt y'all have any mental issues. That was from earlier.
I got all of them. You see this fake head?
That was for the early talking to just to catch the audience up. We asked one of the question that was posed on the channel. On this show was when people are consistently or showing patterns of interrupting each other, is that considered a mental illness? So, but this topic where we on now, just to catch y'all up. Shout out to Elder said I agree, Shelly D. Right now we are discussing men that don't have sex discipline. Is that considered a mental illness? And I'm gonna bring Vulcan in here to chime in on that.
The question is sexual discipline a sign of mental?
Yeah, poor sexual discipline a sign of mental illness.
It definitely can be a symptom of an illness, a psychological illness, for sure. It can be.
Okay. Yeah. And that's what. And for what Victor was saying earlier, just I guess when we exploring trying to figure out why certain men aren't disciplined, he was suggesting maybe men growing up with single mothers, walking around not clothed, naked, that could contribute to somebody not being disciplined in the bedroom or with other women. So,
and think about the impression.
One second, Victor.
Go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
There's one thing that we have to that we're also forgetting about the mother walking naked thing, especially in the Black community. And a lot of women joke about this, but I think it's true. They do it for us when we're in like puberty age, because they want us to be uncomfortable. I think a lot of mothers, because in our culture we don't really want young boys and young girls to stay in the house past 18. But we don't. When it's time, you got to go somewhere. And I distinctly remember in many cases where when mothers did it, they say they did this because like this is my house. They're already planting the seed for you to get ready to go. They want you to go. So a lot of times the Black mothers would walk around naked around 13, 14, 15 to start signaling to their young sons, hey, it's time for you to go ahead and get out of here because I want you to be uncomfortable around me.
Yeah. And that's what I would say. I think just to give, I think it's an opinionated base. I don't think that it's a lot of variables you have to consider as far as why people aren't disciplined. Because we said this with other cultures. You said African cultures see their mothers naked. I don't know if that's a direct sign or characteristic why guys are not disciplined because they witness their mother naked. Now they could be desensitized by the nakedness, but I don't know as far as how they are with intercourse, with other women. But
no, the tip drill video is more reason why we're undisciplined than our mother being naked in the house.
Yeah, the other part is that I want to establish is that, and to reestablish is just a attraction template, because it's not a guarantee that it's going to make you go behave a certain type of way. But if you, like you said, we're talking about conditioning, it desensitizes, or it could repulse you because like, what if you got an ugly, you know what I'm saying? What if your mama ugly? You know what I'm saying?
It's funny you said template because Help the Bear says right here. So if I like ugly women, that means my mom is ugly.
Hey.
Actually, for a friend. Shout out to, said,
no, it means he likes pleasant, simple. No,
it's quiet on the dice question. That's hilarious.
After you've dated a pretty woman and been with pretty women, sometimes you need healing from that, and you want to go with ugly because it's a lot more simpler. My brother used to say that if you really want to have true loving and true passion, get an ugly girl because she's never received that. authentically, if you really love on an ugly girl, she's going to give you
That made you
the
inspired,
world.
right? Vulcan, you
And
got too
it's
inspired behind
actually
that.
pretty true. I see a lot of men who have gone through divorce, and the first thing they say is that I'm never dealing with a pretty woman ever again, because they've seen that pretty woman turn to a demon. And they say that it's much better to get an ugly woman who has lower expectations and keeps it simple. And
All
you
right, so
love on her in a way that she's never been loved before. And she's going to honor you because, oh my God, this man is loving me when everyone else, I'm talking about ugly, ugly, when everyone else has completely shunned her. I ain't talking about
and
medium ugly.
and
Ugly is
and
probably some of the best women to be in relationships with.
and this is your
Hey,
uncle that's saying this?
I'm saying it now because it's
he said
true.
Okay, so wise man's words for your uncle, man. If you want to be passionate with somebody, make sure they're not aesthetically attractive. so let's get help the man said. I've seen a lot of demons in my life. I don't know what he's referring to. All right, so let's keep on. Let's go ahead
He's
and
talking about their
go.
attractiveness.
Okay, wow. Shout out to
I've
Uncle
seen some
Dan,
attractive demons too.
the comedian in the chat. All right, so let's keep we're gonna go to the next topic. Let's go ahead and keep these answers really concise. So for the sake of time, go ahead and give whatever y'all last statements on this topic before we go to the next topic. Please keep it concise. Start out. What the phone?
As far as the sexual discipline part, having been a mental illness,
Yeah, just your
yeah,
thoughts on
I
it.
say no. Again, that's all programming,
Okay,
especially in our
all right.
culture. We grew up masturbating to BET Uncut. We grew up, masturbating to, when people say like, even the guys like, oh, I want a natural woman. What kind of porn do you watch? Are you watching porn of natural women, or are you watching porn of BBL
Corn. It's called corn. YouTube.
porn? Sorry. like what really what really turns you on? And I think a lot of times people have this duality of what they say they want and what they're really turned on by. And so it's all programming. What images really get your what really, that's not a mental illness by having poor sexual discipline, because again, you can have sexual discipline. Let's say you hit the lottery. Now all of a sudden you have $300 million. Now your sexual is going to change because now you have $300 million. I doubt you're going to have the same sort of sexual discipline that you had when you were broke. So does that mean the money now made you mentally ill? Because now that you have the options to have all these types of women, now you're expected. So no, again, the puzzle doesn't fit. If you might have a different programming, you might have different options, but as far as you having low sexual discipline, I don't think that correlates to you having a mental illness.
Okay. Anything you want to say to that, Victor? Like I said, keep our answers concise, and
I would reference Kanye West and his recent admissions to social media about having inappropriate relationships with his cousin. He was given fellatio, and he grabbed the wrong magazine, you know what I'm saying, from what his mom had, and he had an option to grab his daddy magazine, but he was also abused by his babysitter, which was also the lesbian lover of his mama, and then when she removed him, and from a contact with his father, he had more access to his mom, and whatever her romantic situation was, that probably contributed to the way that he chooses women, because his attraction template is wild, but their dating pool is extremely small too, for vetted people that they can find attraction with. So conditioning is the conversation, piece. But like when it comes down to it actually being a mental illness, at some point, if you don't have the ability to regulate yourself, and if you're over prioritizing sexual fulfillment and neglecting a whole bunch of other things, at some point we have to call that into question.
All right, good. All right, Vulcan, talk to us, man. Yeah, can't hear you.
There we go.
Yeah, I think that, can you hear me pretty good?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I was saying, I think everybody's bringing up some pretty good points about it. I think that as far as when it comes to like people growing up in households where the ladies walk around naked, I think there's going to be definitely a degrees to nakedness, whether that's t-shirt and panties on, or is that going to be completely in the nude? Is that going to be a bra on? Is that going to be like a t-shirt with no. There's going to be different variations. I think for most of us that grew up, pretty standard African American home, that's going to be a bit much. Going to be too much. So, and I think that is typically indicative of a father not being in the home, because men are likely to be like, hey, look, especially as a child gets older, maybe when it's a baby, it might be more conducive for breastfeeding and stuff like that. But I think as a child gets older and gets more aware, you typically want to have those lines there. Now, is that indicative of some kind of mental disorder? It's possible, but then which orders in particular? You got nymphomaniacs, I think it would be called, people that struggle with sexual discipline to the point towards affecting their ability to function in society and get their task accomplished. But so we got to figure out, okay, the same thing like the last conversation, which mental disorder is it that we're going to say it is? What is it called? What are the other symptoms? Do they fit enough of these symptoms? So I think that's going to be the question we have to ask. But any of these type of mental disorders, we're going to try to diagnose somebody with.
I do want to ask.
We already did. Last thing I'll say, we already deal with an epidemic in our society where everybody's armchair psychologists and psychiatrists, so they're trying to diagnose everybody with everything. How many women have said, my last boyfriend was a narcissist? Well, narcissists only are a small percentage of the population. So if all y'all are, so either all y'all date the same guys, or you call people narcissists that aren't narcissists. So we just got to understand that those armchair diagnoses, they're just that. Go ahead.
Is there a reason that you all would never imagine a father walking around naked? Let's say he was a single father and the mother was not in the house. Did you ever imagine that being justified? If him walking around naked with said daughter, like, well, mom's walking around us naked, and it's could you imagine the inverse?
Yeah, but let me. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I was going to just say this too. I think we can address what W.T. Funk is saying in the specific, which is I think is a good conversation, a great question you asked. But there's also going to be degrees to it. Again, like if I were to walk into y'all's household, if y'all are with y'all's kids and y'all are wearing loincloths with nothing on, I probably would think that's too much still. But if you go to lots of places in Africa, that's the norm. Now, I'm sure they still find ways to make distinctions between genders there and do that kind of thing, and it's normal over there. Or women walking around with their, mammary glands out. But I think over here we recognize that that's too much, and there's been a big movement about women being able to breastfeed in public, and people are very divided on that topic. So I would just say a man, what most of us would consider appropriate for clothing for a man to walk around in is going to be very culturally. The African dude will be like, nah, that's too close to nakedness for me, right? But then also you gotta, and this is we're gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to divorce ourselves from the idea.
What culture could you imagine the men walking around naked around the kids?
Well, I would, but again, it depends how you're gonna define naked. If a loincloth, I would define as naked.
Our moms walked around naked. Some in t-shirt and panties.
Or
naked,
robe,
no matter.
Or robe, or
no. We talking about
I'm saying naked. I'm sticking with naked.
Just naked, not partially. If it wasn't naked, we say partially clothed. We talk about naked.
Yeah. So my point is saying that I guess for me, naked would encompass even when you have a little bit of clothing on. So I'm saying that even I think for most of us,
naked is no clothing. Period. That's that. And that is
no, yeah, I get it. No, trust me,
our community where mind you, that's why I say it's a disrespectful thing to make the young boys uncomfortable, because the mom can put on panties and a t-shirt and it's not hard. But moms do that to push us out the house. That's my point. That's my theory on
naked. Like there's some men that grew up seeing their mothers naked.
But we're talking about the men, right? We're talking about the men being.
Yeah, we can't speak about the women. Like the women have a. Well, what I mean by that, like little girls have a completely different experience growing up with their mothers being naked, and there's some level of education that goes with that we don't understand as men. Okay, but there's some men out here that I have talked to personally that when I brought this up.
Well, Victor, right now we're talking about men being naked. That's what Vulcan.
Yeah, I get that part, but okay. what I'm trying to capture something here. The conditioning that comes from the experience they grew up with their mom being naked impacts the type of women that they've been attracted to. Like I've had these interactions, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of the idea that there isn't a conversation around a man walking around naked in the house. at all, because it's not something that we think about. There's a level of inherent discipline that we just don't do. We cover ourselves up.
I do
So
want
it's
to
not
ask
even
you.
a thing.
I want to ask
That's
you
what I
this.
was saying. For me, a man walking around even with a towel with his print shown to be inappropriate. Y'all, even though to y'all it wouldn't be classically naked, to me that would still be naked in my world.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, sure. But I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
Yeah.
But I'm just
no. That has to be a disagreement, because a man wearing swimming trunks is showing more skin than a man walking around with a towel on.
Well, there's certain shorts that he shouldn't be wearing to the pool.
I've seen what y'all rocking in America right now. Y'all doing hip hugger shorts.
Nuance aside, I'm talking about the same level. Like, there's women walking around with nothing on, nothing, not partially clothed. Not.
But Victor, would you consider what Vulcan is saying? Would that be considered naked? A guy wearing Speedos or a towel on, is that considered naked?
It'd be too naked for me.
That might be because you're not in the. That might be because you're not in the shape to be wearing a Speedo. That because Speedos are a big thing in Italy.
Yeah,
and they walk around.
No pun intended.
So maybe if you had a different shape, you would be more comfortable walking around naked without a shirt on, with just a towel on and a Speedo.
We're talking about appropriate clothing, in front of
who are you to say what's appropriate and what's not?
And I'm talking about in a house setting. I get, like, you at the pool and you doing whatever.
But I get that's a good question, Victor. He said, "Who are you to determine what's appropriate or not in the house setting?"
That right there is from house to house. I'm not even trying to compete about I'm not trying to set a standard. Okay, I'm just only talking about people that I've had discussions with that these topics that I brought up, it's impacted the way that they.
Well, let me say this. My experience with it, and again, this is anecdotal, so I don't have any proof to it. The men that I've known that had a mom that was like a big mama type. I mean, the average black woman right now is 187 pounds, something close to that. So the thing is, the men walk around with their moms that are very unattractive, women overweight, no discipline. It turns them off from black women in my experience.
It sure does. Exactly. That's the attraction template piece.
Yeah, so that's what I have noticed that. And a lot of women my age, maybe slightly older, they've expressed that a lot of their sons who are black do not date
black women anymore because of it. That's what I'm saying. It's an attraction template variable. Because, like, either they're going to be attracted to women that remind them of what they saw growing up, or be completely repulsed and turned off and go pick something completely out the way. Next thing you know, the kid might grow up in an all black home with a black mom, and he end up with a Korean woman. You know what I'm saying? I've seen it.
I think if it's an attractive black mom, and this is where it gets kind of weird. I mean, it may not have that impact, but people that I've heard talk about it,
it might go the other way. It could end up being down low. Because it's a lot of guys.
I don't say that because again, we got to remember, in the 90s, it was very rare to see sexy. Like we saw our moms naked, right? But we had the opposite of seeing, like, the women who were on BET, and maybe the women who we watched at college campuses who were like the line walkers, and so we had that. So we had mom naked, but we knew we wanted and desired these black women who were, but now the kids who are growing up, their moms look like desirable black women, and they're walking around naked. So now they don't have the desire so much for that said group of black women, because they've already seen their moms portraying sexy black woman and being naked. So they're used to that. And that's maybe why the young black kids are wanting a different type of woman, because they've already seen their mother naked, looking like what everyone else looks like who's black.
Maybe.
Attraction.
I'm mentally fatigued with mom and naked in the same sentence. So let's go ahead and let's get. I want to get this out my head. So let's get.
Yes.
It works.
Shout out to everybody on the panel. So before I introduce this video, RG3. This is Jamila Hill. She actually gave her commentary with RG3, the quarterback for. Was Washington.
You want me to explain it, or do you want to explain it?
Sure, I do. Thank you.
You can always use
me. Thank you.
Yeah, you could always use me if you don't want to.
Positive interruption.
Yeah. So just to kind of give the audience a brief update on what's happening right now and where she comes into play. So you had Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark had a situation on the basketball court, pretty much as basketball as usual. But everybody had to have their comments in there, with sports analysts and the like. And one of the comments that RG3 used to be a QB in the NFL, and that he had was that Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark, right? And so there's Ryan Clark, who's also a sports commentator on ESPN, and he has his own podcast. He's very successful in both endeavors. He said that RG3, because he mentioned his 2 white wives that he's had, and saying that he would not be able to understand what Black women go through, and doesn't believe that he understands the Black woman's plight. And so it got personal in that way. So RG3 released a message saying, you took it too far. It's okay to disagree with my basketball analysis, but for you to go into talking about my wife and stuff like that, that was below the belt. So that's what the conversation I heard. I mean, I don't know if this part is true, but I heard that ESPN had Ryan Clark apologize. I don't know if ESPN had him do it or he just did it on his own, but I've heard that he has apologized. So that's where we are now. So she's given her perspective on it based on what she's seen happen so far. This is Jamel Hill.
All right, fellas, mute your background. About to play the video.
A lot of reasons that Black athletes love Muhammad Ali is because of his unapologetic nature, because he wasn't afraid to talk, because of what he stood on. You see it with Deion Sanders. You see it with like there's been a long line of Black athletes because of their unapologetic behavior and attitude that really resonates with a lot of Black people who want to feel that way in our space. We want to be in spaces and not have to apologize for who we are. And so a lot of Black women appreciate that. So I think inartfully and maybe clumsily, what Ryan was trying to explain is that if you talk to Black women and understand why they ride for Angel Reese and why that right now she is the hero they both need and deserve, then maybe you can understand why what you said was so hurtful to a lot of Black women in particular. I think that's what Ryan was trying to say. I haven't talked to Ryan. I don't know. But yes, of course, naturally, RG3 was going to respond when he brought in his wife. He's basically saying like, hey, you don't even know Black women enough to understand why what you said would set them off. So that's where we are with this right now. A lot of reasons.
So y'all heard a lot being said there. And in light of all of that right there, anybody want to start? Anybody have any comments they want to make to start off the conversation just based off what you heard so far? We can kind of go from there. Does anybody have anything?
I think
I'll start with one of my favorite quotes from Fight Club. Sensitivity is the weakness of man. Sensitivity is the weakness of man. This conversation between both of these men, they both got sensitive, and therefore it derailed everything and turned into a clusterfuck of BS. Now, by Ryan Clark saying, well, because you married a white woman, you don't know enough Black women to understand their plight. That's very facetious. That's very non-logical. Even if he grew up in an all-white university, even if he went to an all-suburban school, even if he's never once even dated Black women, or even, let's say, even had a conversation with Black women, he's done none of that, which isn't true, but let's just say that's the truth. He still could analyze and see Black women's behavior. He can still see from a distance how they behave, and he can still see how they interact with said other people and form a logical conclusion about Black women and their plight or their issues from a scientific level. Neely Fuller always speaks this, is that they study us. They know us better than we know ourselves. And this is on a global scale. People in here in Germany and they love watching Black Americans and how they interact. They watch World Star all the time, and then they think they know Black people. So Black people are always being globally dissected by who they are from the other races. And for some reason, Black people get upset about that when these other races come to a conclusion that might be sometimes correct. And Black people say, well, you don't know enough of us to have this conclusion. And that's not logical.
You're on mute, Enos.
All right, let's bring Victor in here.
Victor, you want to address anything that WT Funk said, or you want to make your own point?
I think I'm gonna make my own point. I think that this situation was, this go back to like conflict resolution. That's what because that's everything we talk about is having an opinion about somebody else's engagement with one another, right? I thought it was kind of tasteless. The minute that you have to involve an opinion and have to involve someone else's spouse is unprofessional, and there was no tact. All of this could have been avoided by not saying anything, which leads me to believe that there's something personal, uh, uh, like in the mix. This is I don't like him, and I know he doesn't like me. Now is the time to pick this out. Ryan Clark's been in the media for too long to not act like, to pretend that he didn't know that this was going to go this far to some degree, because it was just wrong. It just didn't have any tact. I understand how sensitive interracial relationships and marriages are when it comes down to black men and blackness and everything else. So I felt like it was kind of a sucker move to even bring up, because I don't know anybody else's spouse up here. But if I had a problem with any one of you guys individually, I would address it directly to you in some kind of way. But I felt like the way that it was presented, that it had some other type of motive about it. And these guys have been in front of cameras for a very long time for it to have even been a thing, for it to even come up. So I think it's a bigger issue than that.
Yeah. So two
Could
things.
it be they just wanted to create content and make money?
Yeah. That might be it too, because that's what I'm saying.
The most important thing that stood out to me, Victor, what you said, that definitely could be something personal. They might know each other from the past, and it's definitely, you said, it's a sucker move on whose part?
Oh, on Ryan, he should have kept his mouth closed. You don't talk about nothing that involves somebody else's wife. For what?
Because the almighty dollar is the motivation.
I understand the motivation.
Okay.
I'm saying it. If Ryan thought what he said was done in good faith, is BS.
Okay. All right. Let's get Vulcan. Anything you disagree with the Vulcan and Victor, and your thoughts on the clip?
Well, there's a disagreement that I want to get into, but before I get to that part, I'll just say that just to update the audience on a little bit of Ryan Clark's past, is that Ryan Clark has, at least on one other occasion, maybe two, if I thought about it hard enough, went into the racial aspect of a conversation to the detriment of somebody else. You had the situation where on the Andrew Schultz podcast, I guess the guys were Canadian, I think they were, and they were speaking in a way, I guess Andrew Schultz made a comment, a joke about black women. Because they were talking about the context of how black women, I forgot what it's called, but when black women upgrade who they're with, so they show like a picture of a white guy who's dressed in what you would stereotypically think a white guy how he look, and then he gets with a black woman, he has a nice fade and his dress.
Oh, the black wife effect, that thing.
Yeah, the black wife effect or whatever. So Andrew Schultz made a clip about that and was like, yeah, because she's beating you upside the head or whatever, playing on another stereotype. They played on one with that particular phrase, and then he played on a different stereotype, and he received a lot of backlash for it. And so Ryan Clark addressed it and said, Andrew Schultz needs to sit down with black women and get a better understanding of black women. So he has a history of doing this type of thing where he says it's out of ignorance. You just don't understand the black woman's plight. I would say he panders to the black women by stating things that are irrelevant for the most part, because Andrew Schultz was a joke. It wasn't based off of whether his knowledge of black women or lack thereof. He's playing on a stereotype, which is what comedians do. They play on stereotypes to make jokes. And so that's what he was doing in that situation. And you just see here another example where somebody makes a comment where there's a white-black dynamic between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. And whenever he says hate, which I would say, I think it's debatable whether saying that she hates her is a sports take. I would debate whether, so in some sense, RG3 saying that Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark based off of what's going on. That's not, I don't know if that's really a sports analysis. It's not about dribbling the ball. It's debatable. So that point, and then Ryan saying that he can't speak on it because of his white wives. Now we all know that's genetic fallacy. That's disqualifying a belief or idea based off its origins instead of its current meaning and context. So that's a fallacious way of reasoning, which is very rampant in the racial conversations on both sides, when you're disqualifying somebody because they don't have the background that you would like. Another term they'll call it is like ethnic Gnosticism, saying that you have a special knowledge because of your ethnicity. a certain type of ethnic Gnosticism. And so you have access to a certain knowledge base that somebody doesn't have because they have a different ethnicity than you. That again is another fallacious type of reasoning. We're not aware of any knowledge that you would get because you have a special ethnicity. You know, there may be a certain cultural understanding or experience that you may have that somebody doesn't have just because of the fact they haven't had that specific experience. But generally, knowledge is available to anybody. You can share it. I can have an experience, and I can share it with one of y'all. I can share it with somebody Asian or white, and now they have a similar experience that I have now because I used my words and I shared it with them. That I transmitted, they received it. We're all on the same page now. So my point is saying that I think that's another aspect where you see Ryan Clark engaging in fallacious ways of reasoning and pandering to the Black community, specifically Black women, and then saying that like they need him to defend them. And that's one of the things that you see currently, and even Jamel going into it, talking about why Black women, why they ride for Angel Reese so much. But the reality of it is it riding for her or is it capping for her? Because the truth of the matter is the reason why the WNBA ratings are so low is because women don't watch the WNBA. If they really want to ride for her, then watch it. Women make up over 80% of the consumer decisions. If women decided collectively, 50% of them, we're going to support women's sports, they will start getting paid more than the NBA players got paid.
Women economically could crash the stock market if they wanted to. If they just withdrew from certain markets where they spend their money and they decided to, spend their money on the WNBA and buy a jersey or go to a game, it would generate quite a significant amount of revenue. You know what I'm saying?
Could you imagine if Black women really wanted to support the WNBA and said, we're not going to spend money on lashes and wigs anymore and put all that money towards the WNBA instead? How financially viable would the WNBA be within 1 year?
Man, Jason, we talked the other day and I said, imagine if we got back 5 to 10% of the money that we spent on relationships in the past as men. You know what I'm saying? Like you think about it, you get back 10% of the money you spent when between the age of 20 and 30 years old.
Yeah, I would wonder what as far as the women's, how much wealth the woman can, because you said that the spending power. That's what I want to say. I wonder what the spending power for just women in general. But I like what Vulcan said earlier, and I noticed this as well with Ryan Clark. He tends to use fallacious reasoning. Oh, you can't say this because you don't have a Black wife. He said that with Andrew Schultz. Oh, you just don't understand Black culture, and he almost like he undermines the person's intellect or how they observe and break things down. That's a simple way of saying that. But and yeah, that's what I got on that. That's what I got now. Sorry, I was a little distracted with.
It's just unfortunate that no matter what we do as men, your Blackness will always come into question, and. And in the system of white supremacy, like what Nilly Fuller says, it doesn't matter what you do, you're gonna be Black. It doesn't matter if you're a goth person, if you dress alternative, no matter what, the system of white supremacy will always see you as Black no matter what. So why are we as Black people making all these extra conditions of what it means to be Black when the people in power
address,
will all...
There's a comment that you made earlier that I wanted to address.
Go ahead.
So I hear, you put sensitivity as the weakness of man. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. As men, we should be stoic and logical. And many times, as we dive into our sensitivity, as far as when altercations occur, or especially in Black culture, when we feel disrespected, we will kill each other because we got disrespected. And Nilly Fuller says that if we as Black men and Black women could operate in the mentality of understanding that we're in a disrespectful system and expect to be disrespected, then white supremacy loses so much power because they can't trigger us anymore to make the mistakes that they bank on us making. So when I say sensitivity is the weakness of man, sensitivity is also the crux of you making many of your mistakes.
Can you define sensitivity for me, please? In the way that you're using it?
I was muted the whole time. I'm sorry.
Being overly offended to the extent that you are willing to engage into an argument, which is the first step towards conflicts. So being overly offended or looking to be offended. That's where I'm saying with sensitivity, because sensitivity is the weakness of man, meaning that you being
I got you
offended
now.
by something so easily will end up being your own detriment for you, your family, your loved ones.
Yeah,
And
I
many
definitely get what
wars
you're
have
saying.
happened because of man's sensitivity. Many men in power who didn't take something the right way or felt disrespected by something and made the wrong moves.
Okay,
And many men
here's
have
one.
destroyed themselves because of them being sensitive to something that is just words.
Yeah,
Okay.
the reason why I want you to define it is because I think that we have to make sure we don't have an overcompensation on the other side where we teach that being insensitive or being callous towards things that are happening to you around you is a more masculine frame. But I like how you worded it. You dealt with somebody being over offended because you're saying, I guess you're saying offense is okay. You just don't overdo it and don't let that control you till you become a puppet of your own emotions and react in a way that's going to have a negative effect on your life or someone else's. So I definitely agree with that. But I think like the spirit of stoicism is more so it's how you control those feelings on the inside, those emotions. It's not so much that you have them or don't have them. It's what I display. So somebody can say something to me that can be mean spirited, and I can sense, have a deep sensitivity toward it and be offended from it. But what my posture and what I emanate based out of that may still be stoicism. It may be Socratic methods. It may be, figuring out what the base of all this is and where this is coming from. It could be me just, ignoring it or moving on, depending upon what my ultimate goal is for the interaction, but not letting somebody trick me out of my position. And so I can see what you're saying about that part. I just wouldn't want people to hear that men can't be sensitive, because part of the way that men like Martin Luther King and other men who have made change in this world is that they are sensitive to what's happening around them. There's a righteous indignation that can take place when you see certain atrocities happen. And that does take a certain level of empathy and a certain level of sense of everybody has intrinsic value and worth, and you feeling like, what is the side of the saying going? An injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. And so people should feel and should have a sense of purpose when it comes to making sure that you're a herald for what's righteous, and because of that you're willing to commit a certain acts in order to help and protect people and protect your own self at times.
What you said is everything you said is 100% correct. Absolutely 100% correct, and very thought out and makes logical sense. It's just that they couldn't fit that on a catchphrase. So they went with sensitivity as the weakness of man. They couldn't fit that on the Fight Club poster. But what you said is absolutely correct.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, shout out to MFG0308. Gossip, not sports commentary, referring to, just to catch the audience, that we are reacting to Jamel Hill. She was giving her commentary with the battle that's going on between RG3, former quarterback, and Ryan Clark. Also, MFG0308 says women don't enjoy sports. Ouch. Hey, that's just not us saying this. This is data. Help the Bear said, Eagle is your enemy. Hey, you should have promoted that book, Eagle is Thy Enemy. That's a real good book. One of my favorite books. Shout out to Help the Bear. Accountable. Masculinity says man must demonstrate emotional discipline. And
hey, hold up! You cheating? You can't do that. Hold up, sir. That's sir. No, you can't do that. You can't.
You see how I was communicating without even interrupting? See, that's what I'm talking about. Conflict resolution.
Oh man.
Men that prioritize rage in response to disrespect, lack of emotional discipline. Ego is the immature and emotionally untrained version of being an emotionally stoic man. All right, so that's
not masculine. To crash out. Crashing out is not masculine.
In our culture, it is though.
I understand, and that's exactly what I'm addressing right here. That matriarchal influence makes people think conflict is a masculine behavior, and it's not.
Would that apply in prison?
Yeah, absolutely.
I disagree. I think in prison you have to crash out.
No, listen to me.
Okay.
In there, you got a bunch of emotionally undisciplined men that have all been raised the same way. They crash out to get it.
There's white, there's Hispanic, there's black, there's different.
I said men. I didn't even specify a race. I'm just saying in general, the men that are in prison are there for crashing out. And generally speaking, they lack emotional discipline that got them in there.
Okay, that is true, but I'm saying as they are now micromanaging in said prison with nothing but men, who rises to the cream of the crop of those men? Not the person who's stoic.
Look, as someone that's not in there, just observing, that behavior is not conducive to them functioning in society and being free. So
right, but you couldn't say that those men are not masculine.
I can't because that's.
I mean, is there some disagreement going on? What's going on here?
Yeah, I can, because the fact is that behavior is not conducive to organizing. See, masculinity is about discipline, order, structure.
According to who?
According to where it works.
Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. Do you agree with how he's defined, Victor? You agree with how he's defined masculinity?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got
I'm asking what the phone. You agree with how he's defined masculinity?
To an extent, yes, but there's different types of masculinity.
But you agree with his basis, his general definition, right?
Yes, but I disagree with what he's saying. He's saying these things are not masculine, and I'm saying that in our culture and in certain said situations, it is masculine. He's thinking of it from a logical, and he's correct, but by him saying these certain behaviors are not masculine, that's not true. They are. It's just a bad version of masculinity.
Okay, so Victor, what you got to say there? If you
you
can still man what he's saying for the audience, so everybody could be
both realities exist at the same time. All things are true. Okay, I'm not contesting anybody else's perception of it, right? But in a disciplined, controlled environment, all things being, like on the up and up, best intentions, operating in good faith, the crashing out behavior is not going to keep you free. You see what I'm saying?
Can I interject in here real quick?
Now, here, let me finish before I lose my thought. Inside of a controlled environment, everybody still has to follow some sort of laws, some sort of rules, some sort of pet peeve, some sort of policy. And if you violate, they're going to definitely deal with you based on the law of the land, no matter where they are. So being masculine is about adhering to the rules. Being able to, like, if you have to crash out, you just got to crash out relative to your environment. But if you're out here in the free world, you have to crash out by suing people. You can't go out here and shoot somebody just because they hurt you. You know what I'm saying? Like unless it's a life or death situation, right? Like if you could justify self-defense, your situation is way different. But if somebody made you mad and you decided to stomp them out in the parking lot, it's not going to go the way you think it's going to.
Well, I want to make this distinction right here, because I think this might be a point of difference. And as YT Funk pointed out, there's different forms of masculinity. So I was debating whether I should have everybody define masculinity, or should I just kind of give a overview and y'all can disagree. So I don't look at masculinity as a virtue, like being righteous or being just or being loving. Masculinity is just defining traits that are typically associated with males, which includes things like violence and aggression. So I think part of the issue is, I think you're taking a very positive connotation of masculinity. You're saying, and I mean, you haven't really defined it yet, but I think I get a good idea. You're talking about all the best parts of being masculine. That's what I think you're referring to: discipline, all that kind of stuff. But but how I'm looking at it is masculinity is just what's typical of a male: all the good and all the bad. You see what I'm saying? And I think you're subtracting the bad from the masculinity. Nothing wrong with doing that, but I think that, so you're turning masculinity into a virtue, like being virtuous person. Being masculine for a man is a good thing from your vantage point, right?
I'm separating it by behavior, because, like, for instance, right, women are feminine, you know what I'm saying, in expression, but we call them masculine based on their behavior, So I'm looking at it from a conditioning aspect.
But hold on. So right there, even that situation right there is points to what I'm saying, because we're saying that masculinity on a woman is unattractive, but so it's not a character. Like if I said virtue, being virtuous on a woman or a man is good. Love on a man or woman is good. Just on a man or woman is good. So what I'm saying, when you say masculinity is not good on a woman because it's not her role to be masculine, she's exhibiting traits that are typically associated with males. So she's being extremely aggressive, right? We would say you're being really masculine right now, but women do get extremely aggressive, and also men can get extremely aggressive. So my point is saying that, technically speaking, scientifically speaking, masculinity is not a good or bad thing. It's just a way of describing typical male behavior. All the good and all the bad that's associated with it.
Because again, because there's more women who operate in masculinity than there are women who operate in femininity.
But before you
would
go,
also be able to say that
I want to get Victor. What are your thoughts? Agree or disagree with?
Yeah, I wanted both their thoughts on that, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Let's
I think about.
I got you at the phone.
I think about masculinity in terms of function, and what like best practice, good faith. Yeah, you're right. You can assume that I'm taking definitely the good parts that matter to society.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying, when it comes down to it, and you can have a general overall definition of it, right? But the truth is, well, in practice rather, because truth is always relative to people's individual experience. But in practice, when you think about like just this Ryan Clark RG3 situation, right? That's not masculine. That's not masculine.
Oh, who is?
What? Hold on. What? Can you name the characteristic that you're saying is not masculine?
The cattiness, the part that evokes unnecessary conflict. That's not masculine to me.
Well, I would say again, because you're using masculinity only in a positive kind of connotation, I would agree with you. But again, that is a part of masculine behavior. Part of it, I think we would call it clinically, would be called disagreeableness or agreeableness. The lack of agreeableness. Masculine men tend to be, because testosterone, tend to be less agreeable. Women tend to be more agreeable, right? So that's more of a characteristic of femininity versus a characteristic of masculinity when they do the different studies on how people react to the world around them. Women typically go to there's a lot of women who go through assertiveness training so they can get promotions and do different kind of things because they're not naturally as assertive as the masculine would be. We have different hormones going through our body, so I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to when you say those kind of things. So that being more assertive, being less agreeable would make people tend to go back and forth in what one might call a catty kind of way. Now, you would hope that they would be logical and reasonable in the midst of all that, so it wouldn't come across as catty. But I would say within the realm of masculine, there is that part of it. You see dueling, going back to Aaron Burr in those days, they were crashing out, and these guys were refined in a suit, and they were typical considered gentlemen, which had to do more with like your station in life than it did have to do with your character at that time. But my point is saying that, I get how you're using it. There's
a level of emotional discipline on both sides. You can be masculine and you could be masculine in expression and have no emotional control. And then you can be masculine in expression and have all of the emotional control.
Yes, for sure. That's the range of masculine.
That's a discipline and an undisciplined version of everything, because all of us are not conditioned the same way. And that's the part that I want to be able to hone in on. Is like your environment dictates your behavior.
Yeah, I just think there's probably better ways of saying it that are going to be less cumbersome on understanding the semantic of it. Instead of saying that's not masculine, it might be say that's not controlled.
Yeah,
or, something like that. I think I would probably say there's better words to use that already have the right connotation. That there is no negative connotation for controlled, right? There's just to be controlled. Everybody should be controlled. And, so I think there might be better uses of words that can communicate it. Because when you say masculine, you get into what you see here, where it's like, that's your definition of masculinity. Because masculinity is so encompassing of so many different behaviors that you're going to find in males. Like you're studying tigers or lions, you're studying killer whales. And with great white sharks, they forcibly copulate with female sharks.
Yep.
That's a part of the masculine is to grape. But that doesn't make it right. That doesn't mean that if a great white shark wasn't doing that, in this crazy hypothetical I created, you'd be like, hey, you're not acting masculine. You're over here asking for it instead of just taking it. That's what a masculine would do in that situation. So he's got to understand that masculine just describes male behavior.
I do want to ask this question. I want to ask you, do you agree with what he's saying? That
because
I was going to ask as far as Ryan Clark was operating under masculine. I mean, he was
being a protector. He was being a protector, illogically so.
Protector
but he was protecting. He was protecting Black women's perception.
Maybe he was protecting his dollar.
That's maybe, but
hold on. He can be doing both.
Yeah, false
simultaneously.
I mean, so what is he protecting Black women from?
From negative stereotypes. That's precisely what Jamel was saying, and also his point, is that Black women are known as being loud and obnoxious and angry and aggressive. And that's what in the video clip you see Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark get into it, is Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark get into a physical altercation, during basketball.
Okay,
And
but
so
but RG3 didn't make that assertion about Black women.
He said that she hates Caitlin Clark.
That's a logical statement.
And
if
again,
you look at the timeline of, okay, would you at least say she doesn't like her?
Well, hold on. Mind you, I just want to make sure you understand where I'm coming from. I'm not disagreeing with RG3's stance on that at all. I do think that she doesn't like her. But my point is saying that does not in any way diminish the fact that Ryan Clark is acting in a masculine way by being a protector. Right, wrong, or indifferent.
No,
he's being
actually being feminine. He's trying to
audience. Let me catch the audience up. Right now, the question for the panel is Ryan Clark operating under his masculinity. The way he went back and forth with RG3, is that a trait of masculinity? Victor disagree. You said that's feminine. And Victor, I'm sorry, what the fuck disagree, said that was being feminine. Well, Victor, what was your response?
I'm dignifying what the Funk said earlier. There's different types of masculinities. All of us have our interpretations of what's masculine and what's not. And in my perception of it, I led with it like that wasn't a masculine thing to do.
Okay, so you disagree. So
I disagree.
Okay, so all right. Why you disagree? Let's start with what the fun. Why you disagree?
Okay, I disagree because Vulcan's saying that Ryan Clark is protecting Black women from negative images, or negative things that RG3 did not say. So he's not protecting Black women from him at all. What he's doing is he knows there's a narrative of Black women being offended and being whatever, and he's upholding that to get clicks and views and money, and he knows that's going to work. Right. If he had just looked at this logically of saying, do I think Angel Reese likes Caitlin Clark? I think he would logically come to the conclusion, at the bare minimum, they don't like each other. So it's not far-fetched for RG3 to say that Angel Reese hates her. We could go back and look at videos of when she gets hit and Angel Reese is cheering, and you could come up with a logical conclusion that, hey, I think Angel Reese actually hates Caitlin Clark.
Okay, but you might.
There's no point in this conversation where the Black women were attacked. So you're not. So he's not protecting Black women from anything except for their own ego.
Yeah, I had to mention because you made your point. I want everybody to really attack the point as far as the why. You said now the hatred. We can get to all that. That if Caitlin Clark really, I'm sorry, Angel Reese really hates Caitlin Clark. That's another topic. Well, Vulcan, you want to respond to what the phone?
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree with them. I think that, but I just want to make this distinction. Him having a poor perception of it is not masculine or feminine. That's just being human. So I would agree with you. I don't think that is a real defense for Black women. So we're not disagreeing on that part. I'm just saying it's a masculine thing to make the attempt, whether your perception is flawed or not. You can try to protect somebody and realize you're the one in danger. You know what I'm saying? That isn't, but I'm just saying that the proclivity to want to protect, that is a masculine thing, according to science. Whether you're looking at tigers, lions, you're looking at bears, you're looking at male humans, you're going to see that that's promptly in any type of literature about the masculine is the desire to want to protect. So I'm saying that he's doing that, whether he's actually doing it or he's fake doing it, as long as he thought he was doing it, that's a masculine trait, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the point that I'm making.
All right, let me bring Victor in here. Do you agree or disagree?
I like the premise. The premise was well intended. It's the intention that he communicated. It's just the execution that makes it questionable, and it's why
I don't like what he did.
I don't like what he did. It was tactless and it was tacky, and it was.
Would you say it was sensitive?
Well, before we go sensitive.
I think it was personally motivated. So there's always going to be a degree of sensitivity.
So are you, Victor? Are you saying that the intentions was masculine, or what part of what he was doing was not masculine?
I just don't like the idea of bringing women and children into situations between men. Because
I know you don't like it. I just want to know
that's just my personal thing. You know what I'm saying? Because like like what the funk said, he was speaking up for something that RG3 never even said. Like, what did RG3 say that triggered Ryan Clark to, you know what I'm saying?
I get the trick. I just want to make sure we get a clear
I gotta.
discussion.
I'm just trying to look at it like, what would make me have a unilateral opinion about somebody else, any one of you guys, and then judge you negatively or bring your wife up or something to that effect. And I just simply can't relate.
Let me say this.
Vulcan said it earlier. He said it could be his perception, not
I get
really
that
based on
perception.
masculinity.
I get that, but what I'm saying is like,
Well, hold on, Vulcan, you have something to say?
Go ahead, Vulcan. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna just add more to it. When Andrew Schultz came on Ryan Clark's show to discuss the Black woman comments, Ryan Clark told Andrew Schultz, "I did not care about you or your perspective on it." When he saw what the joke about Black women, from what he was saying, his only responsibility was to defend Black women and to speak on behalf of Black women. So again, I'm not saying again. I mean, again, you're bringing up the monetary aspect of it, but more than one thing can be true at the same time. Somebody can advance a belief that they really do believe in that also has monetary advantages to it as well. I think that's more accurate of Ryan Clark than anything else.
What is Ryan Clark protecting Black women from?
I already dealt from negative stereotypes and from reinforcing negative
so does
stereotypes.
Does that mean Ryan Clark needs to protect Black women from themselves?
Again, he can
wait. No, answer that. Answer that.
Well, no, it does. There's no need here. He can choose his own.
No, you said there was. Okay, go ahead.
Because mind you, I'm not defending what he said. I'm not saying what he did was right or wrong. I'm just saying that's what he does. So there's no need involved or should or ought or anything like that. He can choose his own noble quest, and we can judge him on it and say, "Hey, you're being consistent here. If you care about this, why don't care about this, and this?" He may be like, "Hey, I'm picking and choosing the one I want. Do you have a problem with that? Do you have a problem with me picking this particular cause to ride for?" It's not going to go very far if I try to hold him accountable to that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it's all speculation.
It's all speculation, and it's all his own personal preference.
And that's why I was struggling. Like, I need to know what prompted it, and that's why I say until we have like enough demonstrations of this, like we don't know if he got some sort of personal beef with him,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and when it makes you,
and that's in the realm of like you said, speculate.
The speculation too deep, and then we don't need to add any unnecessary. I don't like add unnecessary narratives to narratives that we already don't have the full behind the scenes sight on. So like with what the funk said, it could be for media clicks. I get that too. I also said in the comments, I said Ryan Clark grifted off of RG3 because he knows RG3 is a soft target. You know what I'm saying? Because like you're not going to go back and forth with RG3 very long for what? You know what I'm saying? Like generally speaking, like how come nobody wants to go back and like it's like trying to argue like the same sports conversations come up every day. They either talk about LeBron, Kobe, or MJ. You can, if you got a slow day in sports, you can talk about those guys from top to bottom and make everybody argue everything, right? And they'll never get on the court together ever. But I don't know, man. I think it's just a slow sports day personally when it comes down to that topic.
All right, I got to get these comments, and shout out to MFG. I keep doing this. 0308 said masculinity is a negative, just like femininity isn't negative. Shout out to you. God is humility. He hates pride. That's what the Bible says. So Lucifer attacks men/women based on three things: 1, pride of life; 2, lust of eyes; 3, lust of the mind. Ryan Clark gifted of, you just said that's all for RG3 because he knows that RG3 is a soft target. All right, so that was pretty good. What we're gonna do here, I'm gonna post this picture, and I don't know if y'all could really see it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fine on y'all there?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, so the title says, as young men get more conservative and women more liberal, it's creating a dating divide. This is recent. This is going on with the younger crowd.
So real quickly, y'all, let's just go person by person and say, do you agree with this? Enos.
Yes. I agree.
Victor, do you agree?
Yeah.
And then hold on, okay. And then WTP, you agree?
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
The young man getting more conservative.
You know, it's okay to read it out
yes.
loud. Okay, yeah. So we all agree on that point. So now let's get into the why. So, Victor, you want to start us off in like a minute or less? Why do you think that is?
Education is catching up with I believe like social education about women is catching up for men. More men are focusing on themselves, and it's quite a few different things happening at the same time. But like men are experiencing abstinence from 18 to 25 a whole lot differently than women are. I think a lot of men are focusing on themselves from the men that I talk to, practicing sexual discipline, and then there's a lot of men that can't attract women at all, and women are always competing for the same small pool of men, and that pool is always going to be available to them or be more desirable by them.
Got you. Okay, what about for you, WTP? What's your thoughts? Why is this in a minute or less? Why is this for you?
I think it's the same way of creating duality in culture. And as women have been progressing and getting more information, getting more knowledge, getting more rights, getting more money, getting more autonomy in this said society, it's creating a disdain for men. Therefore, it's making it harder for them to admire the nature of men. It's very apparent sometimes that even with modern women, they don't like being around men unless they're operating or working or doing something. When a man is around them relaxing and chilling, a lot of women internally have a problem with that, even in relationships, where it's like, why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you working? So many women only see men as something that should be working and providing and doing something versus letting that man relax and just chill. So in that sense, I think that women don't like men. They want men because they want men to do certain things for them. They want men to give them certain benefits, but especially if they weren't raised with a father, they don't like the nature of men. And then so these said men are saying, well, they don't like us, and it's hard to find women who value me outside of the fact that I'm making money and doing things. So the young men are saying, you know what, I just rather not date because it seems like internally I'm getting the energy that women don't like men. And that's why younger men are going to go ahead and start focusing more on porn and being gamers and doing that and just kind of using women for sexual pleasure instead of, maybe trying to actually build a real relationship with them. And women are going to start going the opposite direction and starting to have more bonding to their toys and other women. And that's creating the divide. And that's what's going to be 50 years from now. It's going to be a lot of men rarely dealing with women and procreating. And it's all kind of the plan to make the population decrease.
Okay. All right. Just to short that, the reason I agree, the social infrastructure is different for both genders. You see in the university is a higher population of women in the universities, and you see they teach more of the doctrine or the ideology of feminism. And with men, socially has changed in the last 20 years, 30 years. The how we socialize with each other. We get a lot of our content off YouTube. YouTube consists of, most of the viewers are like 90% male. Don't quote me on that, but majority of male are on YouTube, and you see this, the needs for masculine competence is one of their highly viewed videos and requested content that's on YouTube. So I think that's helped influence why the young men are being more conservative, because that those traits usually at times with research aligns with conservatism.
I think people are being radicalized more than what we believe.
Yeah, sorry, hold on a minute. Yeah, so I'm gonna get mine in there and then we can go around and have the conversation. So for me, I definitely think that there's good reason why that's the case. There's some studies that suggest that the more testosterone that you give a man, the more conservative he becomes naturally. I think that estrogen and its emphasis on empathy and egalitarianism more leans liberal. So women have a natural proclivity towards liberalism more so than men. And so as you have it already biologically that they may lean more that way, which makes them good moms and things of that nature, makes them really good, suitable wives whenever they're operating in their nature. So that's suitable for that. And so now you have them being in this incubator of political, ideology that's telling them that liberalism is the right way, and that your feminism and toxic masculinity and white supremacy and all these different belief systems that are coming out of that more liberal perspective, they're the best students in the classroom by far compared to the men, compared to the boys. So they're eating all that stuff up. It's already naturally how they are, egalitarian. And so whenever they come out of that 12 years of schooling or college, there can be a vast difference between them and their male counterparts. Now, there's going to be some men who lean more towards them, but on the spectrum, there's going to be more men who still lean more conservative in their views. And so I think that does cause a problem. We talked about this on the show last time with Tracy Ellis Ross. Tracy Ellis Ross is in her 50s, and she said that part of the reason why she doesn't date men her age is because a lot of them have a certain way they view the dynamics of the roles in a relationship. And if she gets even a whiff, of that, she's turned completely off. So she likes to go to younger guys who are more liberal when it comes to LGBTQ conversations, when it comes to gender roles, all those kind of things like that. So the difficulty is, and I've seen women who are liberal express this point here too, that they said they even though they're liberal, they still like more conservative men who believe that it's the man's role to open doors and the man's role to lead the conversation and to lead the dating and to take initiative and to walk up and approach them. They prefer that as opposed to a guy who's like, well, we're both equal, so you can approach me, I can approach you, but either one of us can lead with 50-50 on the dates. I pay 50%, you pay 50%, because that's true egalitarianism. A lot of ladies, they're fighting with their own biology, with the cultural perspectives they're assuming, because they still want men to do those things, and they find that conservative men are more likely to do those things than liberal men. So even though they agree more ideologically with liberal men, they're more naturally attracted to more conservative guys because they take more traditional roles when it comes to how do you court a woman. So I would say that that's causing an impasse too, because they can't find what they want. They want one, but they want the other for different reasons. And both ideas can't really exist in the same human being.
I think people are being radicalized. I think we're thinking of things in such extremes that we have to get so technical about something that just used to be so simple when it comes down to just simple communication between man and woman. I think you got a large group of men that's been raised by women, and that has an impact. I think there is a negative perception for men that was captured by what the funk said for a myriad of different reasons. Politics plays a role, education plays a role, entertainment plays a role, common interest plays a role. I think that we have reached this level of an impasse that it's going to take something damn near dystopian to happen to make men and women figure out how to communicate with one another again, to the point where they actually can develop connectivity with one another. Remember earlier when we were talking about how your behavior changes whether you're raised with a man in the house or not. This is the fruit of it, because if you got a society that has been, like you said, egalitarian, largely in the last few years, and there's still a lot of resistance with that, because people want equality, but they want somebody else to pay for everything,
Yeah.
And then it's become very transactional and not transformational with one another. So everybody only sees utility in one another. The men see a function of the woman, and there's a lot of men that want families that aren't all going to reproduce, and they're fearful of divorce because of the economics that goes with that. They're not fearful of marriage, they're fearful of divorce, because that is a big loud talking point amongst a bunch of men who obviously assume the different type of risk that goes with it. The child custody conversation, the family court laws, the liability of having a family, and and the financial concerns that men have are not on the same frequency of what the women think, because they are by and large having a conversation that's based on the utility of having a man. Like, so what's the point? That's the kind of the way that they're looking at it. So yeah, the less interaction between man and woman that you see, men do not become more liberal with isolation. They become more conservative. Naturally, they fall into what makes sense for their day-to-day routine and all of that, right? And women typically going to have to take a more liberal approach and try to, take make a social effort, create narratives and conversations around things that make women feel good, but may not necessarily be tangible to act on to get the attraction from men that they feel that they deserve, according to what popular social media trend might be going about on TikTok, Facebook, IG, whatever. I think the poor.
I do want to chime in to add to your points before we go to the next topic. That I just heard this. I forgot the source. I'm sorry, but that the Homeland Security is actually investigating or paying a lot of attention to the guys that actually promote the conservative values. I did see that, and that's what I'm noticing now. This is probably different from our fathers and grandfathers in the past, because we got more access to this kind of content. But I do want to go to this next topic, and I want to get y'all thoughts on this. All right, so across the dating platforms and surveys, Black men consistently ranked as the most desirable by women of every major racial and ethnic group, including white, Latina, Asian, and South Asian (Indian) women. From initial matches to message rates, the data shows when it comes to attraction, Black men lead across the board. Black men are consistently ranked as the most desirable by women of all ethnic backgrounds.
Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead, sir.
I was gonna say, Victor, agree, disagree, and then we're gonna get everybody to agree or disagree, then we'll get into the why. Victor, you agree, disagree?
Oh yeah, agree.
WTP, you agree, disagree?
That Black men are the most desired men on the planet?
Yeah. Agree, disagree?
Disagree.
Okay, Enos, agree, disagree?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
I agree.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I agree, even though I think it could be in the top two, not number one.
That's why I was hesitant.
Okay, so let's go WTP. Let's go and start with you, because you said that you disagree.
Okay,
why you disagree?
I disagree because I think that's a small subsection of Black men that those women desire. I think that's mainly because of the influx of corn. And on a global scale, even here in Germany, worldwide, interracial corn is consumed in one of the top ones that women watch. Women watch that and lesbian corn the most. So logically speaking, they'll have it's not that their desire, it's more of a fantasy. It's more of a they don't desire Black men and what we've gone through and what really we are in our spirit. And what they desire is the action and the swag of said top 15% of Black men. But those same Black men it doesn't encompass all the Black men that come from all these who are maybe middle class or lower class in Africa. It doesn't encompass Black men in all these other instances. It's only encompassing the Black men that are in media that are being seen.
Well, I think real quickly, because we didn't read the whole thing, but I think it's referring to like dating app statistics. I think it's talking about like dating app type stuff, and then like Pew Research and stuff like that. That's still just
the curiosity, and it's just the few Black men that have that certain look or that certain Black men in general. I just want to make sure I understand. Black men in general are not the most desired on the planet. It's just a small subsection of Black men who are.
So you're saying that this small group of Black men are the most desired men, period, on the world? Is that what you're saying? She's saying at the
That
top there
small
are black
subsection,
men.
yes,
Yeah,
a
so
small
okay,
subsection of black men, not black men in general. No.
Okay, got you. Okay, Victor, you agree or disagree with that point?
I don't disagree with his point.
Mhm.
I would say in my personal experience, I've traveled a lot, man, and I understand the difference between, like what he was bringing up about desirability to, like how deep does that attraction actually go. But according to what was written in that particular screenshot and just looking at data, surface level stuff and characteristics, yeah, I understand why women from other ethnic groups find black men very attractive. If you leave the United States and you go spend time anywhere, of course they're gonna fetishize you. You know what I'm saying? Of course you have to be in the right circumstances. If
We'll quickly. So okay, I appreciate that. Now, you said that you also agree with it. Why do you agree with it?
Yeah, for now, because I was conflicted because I think white men are the most desired globally. Because I read books about how white men are able to travel to all parts of the four corners of the earth. But I think it's changing. The why is tough for me because I could guess maybe it's a lot. Maybe I heard what the fun said. Maybe corn. Maybe that.
It's a fantasy.
Sports. I think sports, basketball, sports like that, track, soccer. I think the world are more exposed to black men. So I don't think it's just American men. I think when you do go to Europe, like Victor said, a lot of African men are dealing with multiple different races. So.
Let me ask y'all this real quick. Do y'all think there's a problem with black men being fetishized or fantasized about? Does anybody have a problem with that?
No.
Okay, we got WTP. What's your problem with that?
It's not real. It's based in ego. It's based in facade, and it makes young black men feel like they need to focus and build that up versus building up who they actually are.
So let's make sure. Let me just make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. You're saying that non-black women fetishizing and fantasizing about black men, it's not real, and it hurts black men in what way?
Women in general, black women as well. Yes.
Okay, and you're saying it hurts them because how?
Because that means that the young black man is building up an ego and a facade that's going to be his own detriment. To so many people, when their facade gets checked or facade gets challenged, they'll kill someone to protect it. That they will do things to maintain this ego that's not even important. And as young black men, we are programmed to only focus on what's important. My ability to hump, my sexual prowess, my ability to make money, and my ability for violence. And those three things are what encompasses what we're programmed
Can you do
with.
this? Can you define what it means to fetishize the black man? Like, what does that mean? Like for the audience out there, because you said it's not right, it's not good. What is the definition of it for you?
You're asking me the definition of what is the fetishization of black men?
No. What does it mean to fetishize somebody? Is because you're saying it's a negative thing. So what is the definition of it is negative?
By putting someone on a pedestal for things that really aren't intrinsically important. It's the same way that a lot of people have fetishizations of Asian women that really aren't important from there in their spirit, but the whole, white men love the fetishization of Asian women and that whole thing.
Does anybody want to take a stab at that? Anybody disagree?
Yeah, I disagree.
Yeah,
who wants to go first? We got.
Go ahead,
Wait. Okay, so wait, which part are you disagreeing with? Because I didn't even get to the point that I was trying to make. So let me go ahead and find out which part you're disagreeing with, because maybe I would have made it full circle.
Yeah. I didn't think you would finish with the funk. I understood you were still trying to land your plane with the
I promise I'm quick. I'm not a long-winded person. I'm a bartender at heart. I make my points within a 2-minute span at most. But what part are you guys disagreeing with? And then I'll make it quick and then we go on.
Well, you disagree with the initial statement that it's wrong to fetishize for people to.
Okay. So you think it's fine to fetishize?
I think it's a human behavior.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason I would the only time I could see it being bad for somebody that's not for other races that's not getting that same attention. That's I don't for the guy that is getting that kind of attention, it just opens. He has more options. I think that's a good thing for people who was pursuing relationships and want to find a mate. If women are fetishized, it open his options of who he wants to marry or have a relationship with. I don't see nothing wrong with that.
Do you think that maybe correlates with the fact that that's why maybe the only 15 to 20 or 25% of the men are the ones who are populating because of those fetishizations, and now there's a bunch of black men who don't get a chance to be fathers because nobody wants them?
No, I think that has more to do with the single parent population that reproduces with itself. Because
but there's so many on a global scale, most men pass away before they ever procreate.
I'm only speaking on the black men that's here in America. I don't know the rest of everything else. I'm assuming that swipe data, that the fetish. So let me narrow down what I'm saying. So, like you said, it's a very
do you think they fetishize black men, or are they fetishizing black American men? Because I'm promising you, they don't fetishize black African men the way that they fetishize black American men.
I'm focused on nothing but black American men because I can't speak for anything else. So,
then that's not fair. If we're speaking about black men, it should be a global thing.
I still haven't got the reason why it's wrong. I didn't hear you connect that point. Why it's wrong?
Okay, I made the point because what is that saying to the? Does that help a young black man to have society have these fetishizations on him? Is that a positive or a negative for him?
It could be both.
Okay,
look. So let's say that man is.
Hold on, real quick,
he's still black.
Agree with them? Hold on, WTP. Do you agree with them that it could be both?
Yeah, it could be both for the 15% who are maybe 6 feet tall, or the ones who are genetically handsome by most people, but that still doesn't count. You know how people say, "What do you love about black women?" And they'll list these things about their beauty, and I was like, okay, so what about the other black women who aren't that?
Well,
do you love them as well?
Well, quickly, I think that the beauty of fetishes, and I have cons about fetishes as well. But the thing is, the beauty of fetishes is that guys who aren't traditionally attractive, they still reap the benefits off those fetishes. You can take a very unattractive black guy in a certain environment around non-black women, and because they have that fetish, they will look at him. They're not judging him like somebody that's used to him or comfortable with him and don't share that same fetish. They're going to judge his attributes superficially, like we all typically do. But people that have a certain fetish may overlook traditional markers of attractiveness in favor of their fetish.
You're right, but that still might be that person might be a 4. But what about the black men who are 3s and 2s and 1s?
It's still open for them too, though.
Well, the thing is that
they're ignored, sir. The fetish doesn't apply to them.
To me, whether it applies to them or not, they didn't win, they didn't lose. They just stayed where they were before we got started.
Nobody wants them, so they lost.
But that's fetish or not?
Lottery.
No, but again, we agree that they lost, but the fetish did not help them lose or hurt them. It might help them. It's not going to hurt them. The fetish
absolutely hurt them because now they can't reach the. They're not being judged by how they are, what they're good at, or what. The only thing that,
but they were going to be judged by that anyway.
Game is they somehow and women will say, "Well, if you don't have this, you better make a whole lot of money because you don't have anything else of intrinsic value."
I just want to make sure you understand the point that I'm making, and y'all feel free to interject after I say this point. But I'm saying that you're right. A man who is not receiving the hypergamy lottery, women are not picking this guy. If you add a fetish of his that benefits his skin color or not, it only can help him because he already wasn't going to get picked anyway.
No, he doesn't reach the they have the fetish, and they'll say, "Well, you don't reach that standard of that fetish."
So let's say the fetish is that black men are great at bed.
What if said black man has 4-inch penis? Now all of a sudden he doesn't. So he doesn't reach the fetish of what the woman got once. So maybe he might get a one-night stand at best.
Okay, but that's a one-night stand he wouldn't have got.
He got access to.
That's access.
He got something he could work from.
Yeah. So my whole point is saying because again, I'm not disagreeing with your point. I just think that we're not putting it all together the right way. I'm saying that you take a guy who's 5'6", not particularly attractive, and there's a rumor or a fetish that black men are more well endowed, right?
Right.
He's in an environment where people are not particularly knowledgeable about how accurate or probabilistically how accurate that particular fetish is, right? He may get access that he wouldn't otherwise have based off that fetish.
And then when the pants come down and he doesn't reach that standard, those women will judge him and make fun of him and clown him.
Well, perhaps that could happen. I wouldn't disagree with that. But
Most likely that will happen.
Take the fetish away, he had no chance.
So you're saying the fetishization of black men is good?
I'm saying that, I have my cons. We haven't got into my cons yet. I was giving everybody else a chance to share their cons because they disagreed. But my point is saying on the pro side of it, I think that man had a certain level of access that he wouldn't otherwise have.
I disagree. I think that once they realize that he doesn't reach that fetish, he's going to get shamed. But
if they realize he already won.
Because he got a one night stand, because he got a date, he won. The winning is being chosen and being picked to have a lifetime partnership with. That's how you win. Winning is not, I got laid, so I won. That's very superficial.
I think a lot of men in the world probably disagree with you. I think people got different definition of what winning there is. And when men just able to lay with a woman, they won. And a lot of men will look at it that way.
What did they win?
They pumped.
Intimacy, what did they win? Intimacy with women they wouldn't have a chance with, but because they have these stereotypes, the guy was able to benefit and start from there. So maybe
this woman has also experienced another black person besides him, and this other black person doesn't. So he only wins if he's the first black man.
Well, I don't know. I'm not the winning part. That's how everybody define winning differently. That's that's subjective. What I'm saying is, some people might consider that winning. What I'm saying, one of the pros, he wouldn't have the guy that has these stereotypes wouldn't even have access to these women. So he has somewhere to start with where he can possibly have a family and marriage, because he already has a.
He's not going to get family and marriage because he might at best get laid. He's not going to be chosen for family and marriage because he hasn't reached the standard that these women already have in their head.
Well, this is the thing right here. And Victor, you got anything you want to say, Victor?
Yeah, every man don't care about what the phone talking about. You know what I'm saying? Some men want to go in there, check the block, get a notch in their belt, and every man's attraction and validate, and how they validate their attraction isn't the same thing. So some men are out here just to experience women. They fetishize the women that fetishize them, and it's just transactional, mutual, and it's left at that. And that's why I define everything as sexual discipline. Like if you want, if winning for you might be completely different than winning from somebody else, because there's some like Nick Cannon is winning than somebody. You know what I'm saying? There's a broke version of Nick Cannon out there. You know what I'm saying? That don't have no money, but got
the Nick Cannon lookalike that's getting women off the fact he looks
that's what I'm saying.
Kind of like Nick Cannon.
Yeah, and the guys that don't have no charisma but still want to get laid, they're winning. You know what I'm saying? In those circumstances, because they got the characteristics. You're talking about character-driven relationships and stuff like that. Some of these guys do not give a damn about having their character validated. They want their meat wet. That's it.
Well, and again, I'm not even reducing it to that level and just taking that such a reductionist view of those men. They're denying people, but that's a foot in the door.
We're talking about fetishes, though.
A foot in the door to destruction, possibly.
So
possibly.
But what I'm saying is, you have two options. You have no foot in the door. You have a foot in the door. Most folks prefer the foot in the door on an opportunity.
If they don't have no charisma.
Yeah, if they're the guys you're talking about, which aren't getting selected already anyway.
Right.
Those guys, according to the statistics, they're being forced monogamy, forced abstinence. That's what they're dealing with.
Incel.
So if they're benefiting, which we all probably been around guys who benefited off of stereotypes, whether it's they just want to be with a guy who's like 50 Cent. This guy may not be the most attractive guy, but he's got the tank, the girlfriend threatening her on. And he's showing off his masculinity, and he's doing all the hip hop mannerisms, and he may be able to get non-black women or black women who weren't involved with that lifestyle or wasn't closely related to it, so they only saw from afar and want to get a closer look. Some of those men benefit off of him just mimicking what they perceive to be their a masculine man in that world. So they're benefiting off that, and he doesn't even exhibit those characters in real life, and he doesn't even look as attractive as the guy on TV. So my point is just saying that it gives them an access. And so you look at it, women typically want to use sexual access as a way of gaining a relationship or maintaining a relationship. Men typically get in a relationship to have access to sex. So the thing is, and of course that's a very crude, a dichotomy right there, but there's a lot of truth in it, even though it's not all encompassing. So my point is saying that a man having that level of access, just because of the fact of a fetish, gives him a chance that he wouldn't otherwise have. That's what I'm saying. Now it's a chance at love, it's a chance at hate, it's a chance at being embarrassed, but I'm just saying it's a chance.
Chance of chlamydia. Okay, all right.
Yeah, facts. That's facts. Yeah. So,
All right.
What's this right here? What we doing?
I did want to say, because I know, but trust and believe the white man is the most desired. Think about Africa. They want white men badly there. Like if you look on Facebook, you'll always see these weird groups, of black women looking for white kings, and if you go in the groups, you'll see a ton of black women from African places begging for the most bottom of the barrel white man. Same
I think
thing
they
in
want
Asian
Westerners.
culture.
I think they
Sorry?
want Westerners. That's
No,
what
they
I think
don't.
they want.
No, they don't. They want the Europeans.
I
They want the
think
European white man. They
Again,
actually don't want American white men as much as they want European white men. But I'm just speaking in general. White men on a global scale are way more desired by Asian, by African, and it's starting to happen now in America as well, and also in South America. Broke bottom of the barrel white man is still more globally desired than top tier black man.
I think that could be a good conversation right there. But one thing I want to get into a little bit is some of the reasons why I don't think the fetishes are good. One of them being, and it kind of points to what you're saying as well, WTP, which is that it's more shallow attributes that you're looking for. So somebody's actually going to mate select based off of things like that. Then the hierarchy is all off. The hierarchy of values is all off. And so I don't think
a lot of times they just want sperm donors.
Nothing wrong.
These fetishes lead to that. They don't want the black man for the rest of his life. They just want his sperm. They just want to have a black baby.
Yeah, you can have fetishes without acting on those fetishes. That's part of it as well. Like,
okay,
you muted. Can't hear you, Vulcan.
Because you know I'm right. Go ahead, keep talking, keep cooking. Well, we can't hear you. Perfect.
Yeah.
Did my Jedi mind tricks.
Yeah, I see.
All right, now we can hear you.
Okay, good. So in short, what I was saying is that I don't think it's healthy to base what makes you choose off of fetish. And I oftentimes wonder if the part of the reason why non-black women, even black women, like black men is for the wrong reasons to start out with.
Absolutely.
I think part of it is that in our culture, we don't value critical thinking as much. We don't value education as much. We don't value standing up for principle as much. And so we can be more feminine in our disposition, which liberal women may find more attractive.
Both sides find it attractive.
Yeah.
How old are you?
Conservative and liberal.
So yeah.
More attractive. I think liberals find it more attractive.
Yeah, I'm saying they can find it more attractive, a person who has similar beliefs with them. I've met non-black women who said they like to date black men because they do tend to be more open about things. The only thing that black men tend to not be as open about is the LGBTQ stuff. But outside of that, with the pause movement and all that stuff, you see started by, made popular by Dipset, Dame and Cam and all those guys. Outside of that,
no homo.
Black men tend to be into things. Black African American people culturally tend to be more in the creative things, less about philosophical quandaries and breaking out the nuance of semantics and understanding of things. Tends to be more vibe, more intuitive, more go with the flow type thing, and that fits more along the line of the feminine. You're not going to see a lot of movements outside of African American communities that talk about Black women are queens, and this worship of femininity that you'll find in some African or some religious groups that African Americans tend to partake in, whether it's 5%ers or whatever the case, 7, whatever it's called. Certain Egyptology beliefs where they tend to herald the woman as some type of feminine, like diva and queen and stuff like that. So women who want to be pedestalized in that way and look at the world as more egalitarian and women and men are equal on playing footing, they may prefer a Black person or African American person because they tend to be more empathetic to their empathetic to their particular worldview. Victor, you got anything on that?
I had a question. How old are you guys?
42.
Okay. What about you, Vulcan?
38.
51. No, I'm just 30. 38.
Okay. Yeah. So, and age is a factor too. You know what I'm saying? In terms of like what type of experience you have as a man, because like some of the guys that's like, so you take this large dating pool or however large the pool is, right? Let's say you take some guys that's in their 50s that's been not so fortunate to be able to attract someone no matter where they are, and they try to go to a different place or have a different experience. Age may be a huge discriminating factor, or maybe a huge qualifying factor, depending on what's going on with the attraction for men, just no matter where they are. And then I've also seen a lot of the times where there's been Black men, no matter, specifically, I could talk about the African American population traveling to different countries to go get a romantic connection with a woman, and they're not typically dealing.
Passport bros.
Yeah, they're not typically dealing with the best available women on the market either for marriage. You know what I'm saying? That's the most deceptive women will definitely play ball with men from America. Like case in point, like I was stationed in Korea for 2 years, and one of the things that they said before is like when you get there in theater, they say, hey, they had a rule. They told soldiers, do not get married in the first 90 days because there's so many different women that's over there that they can end up with, from Russians to Filipinos to Korean women themselves, and women from other countries that are living in the country as well. And a lot of guys, they've never been exposed to that wide diversity of different women that's outside of America. And so like, and if they're between the age of 18 to 30 and they haven't had very much success with women, their perception of their attraction is different. They don't even know they're being fetishized. You know what I'm saying? So, and then you got the guys that absolutely know that they're being fetishized and they take advantage of it as well, And so like, it just boils down to the appetite of what the person leaves home with and what they desire. It boils down to the type of home life that they was conditioned in. So some men are raised in homes that objectify the opposite sex because they've been objectified. You know what I'm saying?
But that fetish actually helps the appetite. That's what
you have to balance all that, because it sharpens your instinct to be able to discern who's for you and who's not. You know what I'm saying? Because there's plenty of guys that end up with, you know what I'm saying, somebody's got a bunch of miles on them. They think they got something brand new,
All right, Victor, I have to get these comments in. Shout out to the listeners at Accountable Masculinities University. Fetish, make sure y'all subscribe to that channel too. Fetishes are not about character. Fetishes are about characteristics, short-term fulfillment. Shout out to MFG0308. Men are turning to God. John 14:6, Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Shout out to MFG. Help the Bear said, hello. Help the Bear said, hey, is Victor the guy that talked about the drunk uncle? LOL. Oh, he's hilarious. If that's him.
Yeah. Okay. I brought it somewhere at the time, yep.
All right, so Help the Bear also said he asked y'all age.
Another nice
question. I'm surprised the stream did not disconnect.
They got me out of here the last time.
All right. So let's get into the next topic. This is this is, like I said, we like to cover certain things. I'm gonna get y'all thoughts on this.
I got to run, you guys.
All right.
Go for it, bro.
All right, man. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it, and I got to get in dad mode.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
But let's definitely do this again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I can't see that. Okay.
Got it. Own it.
There we go. All right. So educated women are more likely to be single and not by choice. A study from Cornell University found out that every 100 college educated women, there are only about 85. I can't really see this light.
I mean, want me to read it?
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah, found that for every 100 college educated women, there are only about 85 college educated men. The numbers are even more skewed in Black communities. Many of these women say they're not unwilling to commit. They just can't find partners who meet their intellectual, emotional, and financial standards. So the question isn't why they're single, it's why the dating pool can't keep up. Source: Cornell University study on educational attainment and marriage, market imbalance. Also reported by The Atlantic, Pew Research Center, and Brookings Institute. So again, why educated women struggle to find partners? Because they're overqualified, says this article right here. What do you? And let's get into it real quick. Enos or Victor, who wants to go first?
All right. As far as what our thoughts, question, or
yeah, anybody got anything they want to say about this before we get into anything specific?
Yeah, I'll just start off saying it's accurate. I think this is true. That is true.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's widely known. I'm cool with saying it is true. No problem.
Yeah,
I think some truth to it. A lot of truth to it.
I think this has been true for a long time. I've been hearing about this for a long time. I know that it's been said many times. A lot of women that are in the university, when they ask what they're looking for in a man, the men in that same university, in that same class with them, do not even fit the criteria to get access to them.
Mm.
I think it's a value system thing. I think men and women don't have the same value system. Men spend most of their time at work cultivating, who they are, building up, people like to talk about building, actually just becoming more mature so they can be functional in the world, and you start taking on traits from the things that you do on a regular basis. So if you are a man that's focused on yourself and you got routine, you got to prioritize what's important to your day and your life. If you know what I'm saying, making your money, paying your bills, pursuing whatever your endeavors are, the woman is doing the same thing, but from an educational aspect of it, and then having to get into the workforce to get a return on investment for the time that she spent in school, So I think it's about socialization. You have to kind of meet. They tell the women to meet and marry their husband while they're in college, but you just saw that thing saying, like they still don't want to select from that pool. You know what I'm saying? They still don't.
Well, I think what the article is saying, even if they were to select men in college with them, there's not enough men because
there's not enough men.
There's not enough men.
The pool is just shallow in general for what men for the men that fit the criteria that women say. I was on a super panel with the Untouchables with Team Fatty and Ilkan Ali, and they brought this up to some degree, and the conversation got into are men qualified to lead the women? You know what I'm saying? Should most women follow most men? And by the loud outcry that we see in engagements on this topic, most women do not believe that the men that are available out here qualify for them for whatever reason. So that just leads me to believe that men and women are now operating on separate value systems altogether.
Yeah, this goes to that thing we were talking about a little earlier about, how women are, the liberal, talking about the liberal conversation and the fact that, there's this affecting the dating pool because the more educated a woman gets, typically the more educated she gets in liberalism and more liberal ideas, which have to do again with egalitarianism and difference in gender roles. So in a lot of these women, they're not having anybody philosophically sort this out and forcing them to be consistent. So they'll maintain that the man must initiate, the man must, provide and protect. The man must make the first move and pay for the dates. But we're equal in this thing. There's no role distinction between women and men. Women and men. We're still partners. And so that the two different ideas come from separate worldviews, and they're trying to marry the two, but they're not taking the time like they did in school with their class books to actually reconcile the two in a cohesive way. So now they're walking out with this amalgamation of views that come from all different places, and they're saying, take me as I am. And if you can't accept me being this way, then the problem's with you. You're weak. And so men, whether they're educated or not, still esteem consistency and logic. And it's like, okay, so they're coming into play and going, hey, look, you want me to lead or not? And so now leading is being defined differently. Some people might say, oh, you lead in the areas you're strong in, and I'm leading the areas where, and I'm gonna lead the areas where you're weak. No. The leader delegates his weaknesses, and the leader works on his strengths. So just because she's stronger in a certain area doesn't mean that she would lead there. It means he would delegate that out to her. That's how traditionally it would work. So let's say she's better with spreadsheets and finances and stuff like that, and he's terrible at that kind of a thing. She would bring the spreadsheets to him and explain what's going on, and he would still have to make decisions for the household in a traditional system. Mm-hmm. But now a woman's going, well, look, I'm educated, I'm better at this than you, so I lead in this area and you lead in this other area. And it's like, no. The leadership doesn't change just because your strengths, that's the way that you were able to help me. Traditionally, that would be your contribution to the families, that you're able to help us out in those areas. So I think part of the issue with these things, these women getting educated in that kind of way, nobody's helping them to sort all this stuff out. They're being told, you can have it all. You can have it all. You can have the egalitarianism you want.
They don't want him.
And the fluid gender roles. And also the man needs to lead. The man needs to initiate. The man needs to be the provider.
But how can you prove that? How can you prove that men esteem logic more than women? How would you explain that?
Well, at everything I said, I'm surprised you picked that one to focus on. that was definitely the minor of my points. But sorry, go ahead, Vic. You're gonna say something?
Women don't need help with relationships. They just simply don't want the men that are out here. They're operating on a completely different value system. They're not thinking about relationships the way that men are thinking about relationships. The conversation around, like, think about when they say I'm single by choice, right? But they'll still be in the relationship conversation. Generally speaking, if you're single by choice, then you shouldn't even be in it, you know? And I'm speaking as a married man from the outside looking in. I want to caveat that I'm not trying to date anybody or anything like that. But from what I see, because I'm neutral and I can see in both sides, as much as possible, is that.
So real quickly, you're saying that you being married makes you neutral?
Yeah, because like my wife ain't, I mean, me and my wife, we solid, man, you know, so like we don't really have any we don't have any equity in the dating.
Well, yeah, but to me, the difficulty with that kind of thinking and is that then that to me is similar to somebody saying, well, if you're married, your opinion matters. If you're not married, your opinion doesn't matter. The many people are saying, well, if you're not in the dating pool now, you don't know what's really going on, so your opinion doesn't matter because you've been out of it too long and it changes every 2 to 3 years. So then you end up in a situation people are judging the truth of what you're saying, not off of what you're actually saying, but off of whether you're married or not, and whether they think they should value your opinion based off of your situation. So I would just say, like, I don't know if it makes anybody more or less biased based off whether they're married or single.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying you're biased. I'm just saying that I don't know if that really impacts it that way.
Well, that's what I'm about to say. Let me qualify. Let me qualify what I mean. From the outside looking in, looking at the fact that I value marriage, right? Mm-hmm. And I come from a 2-parent home. And, I believe that man and woman are a very, very special thing working together. I see the utility of it. I see, like you was talking about, like I said men and women have incompatible value systems. It is more competitive than collaborative. It's like the current dating culture is like, what do you bring to the table? Instead of saying what I would like to say is like, what can I take off your plate? Because the relationship should be about being of service to the other person. I see how much individualism that is promoted through social media impacts the way that we, you know what I'm saying, have discussions with each other, from man to man, from woman to man, how we're perceived. Like one person is thinking from, I want to protect you, and then the other person hears, are you trying to control me? You know, so that's why I said that we're experiencing what I believe is radicalization, to the point where it's impacting men and women being unable to trust one another. That which makes them lean on education, makes them more materialistic, individualistic. We're more intellectually segregated than what we understand. A lot of these people already come from homes that didn't have credible male leadership. They didn't have, if they did have credible male leadership, or even if they had a man in the house, they may not have seen a collaborative effort between the man and the woman. They
and real quickly, can you tie that back to the topic real quick? So, and you're saying this to say what about the original topic?
I'm saying this to say that this is another variable why women are not satisfied with the options for men out there. That makes the pool that much more shallow, even if they're already having shallow, you know what I'm saying, options with the 85% of men that's available as college educated, and they're still not picking from those guys. Their pool is that much more shallow because some of the things that women require, a lot of women are starting to say that those women are unrealistic. They come into the conversation, yeah, you got an education and everything, but you got somebody else's kids, and you still want to be popular on Instagram, and then complain about not having any options for marriage.
Yeah.
So like the want it all mentality. I hear that. But those are different values. That's those things that those women value to be able to take into the relationship is part of the have it all situation, right? And I believe, in as far as Black people are concerned, we are a want it all, or you know what I'm saying, or not at all mentality. If we can't go 50-50, then that, like, would bring up a 50-50 conversation to see how fast everybody get turned off. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So you see, that's how fragile the communication is.
Yeah, some conversations we're not even allowed to really have. If you even attempt to broach the topic, you were already being labeled a certain way.
It's over with. You'll never get past.
Yeah.
It's a brick wall.
And the utility. Yeah, you don't get into the utility of the conversation. Do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, this what you said earlier as far as leadership. I want to chime in on the leadership, because we talked about this before on the show. If you look up some stats, it was a Harvard Business Review, and they said that it was like 12, 15 skill sets that they test men and women on, and women actually score higher than men for majority of those skill sets. It was two things they didn't score higher than. It was leadership and expertise, and the person's craft. Men only score higher than women in those two areas. So yes, if you have financial standards, yes, if you have emotional standards, and what was the other one? Intellectual standards. Yeah, it was intellectual. Men, and to point to what you're saying, esteem logic. So just because a man is not the best at articulating his perspective doesn't mean he's not on your level intellectually. Because you could date a man that's a foreign man who can't speak the language. It doesn't mean that you're more intelligent than the person. But logic.
Yeah, and this to piggyback off what you're saying, I think part of the way in which, from a more biblical standpoint, what men are to cover women is because of their emphasis on more scalable models, logical, mathematical, the value system. So when women dominate crystal cells, women dominate zodiac and astrology, women dominate manifestation and law of attraction teachings. They dominate those fields because those are non-empirical, more mystical belief systems, more Gnostic belief systems that don't appeal to empirical data, don't appeal to mathematics and logics. They love intangibles that are not scalable, because math is intangible. 2 + 2 is 4. We can't touch it, but it's something that's scalable. It's something that's justifiable. You can explain it, and you can explain how you got there. You can show somebody else how to get there.
You can audit it. You can't audit it.
Absolutely right. And so in the context of leading a lady in the context of a relationship, you have the man is meant to emphasize things that are more rubric based, more standardized. While so when the lady starts to float with her femininity, he's able to cover her in that way. Conversely, when it's times when the man may be rigid in some of his things, men tend to be less into people and more into things, have to deal with more antisocial behavior. Women tend to cover men in those kind of ways. They tend to help men in those kind of ways.
Let me jump right there and say this very simple phrase. Women live on expectations and men live on experience. Completely different value systems. Women live on hope, thinking that it's going to happen. They're going to, like you said, all that manifest stuff and everything. Men can't go through life just manifesting stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if they are, they keeping it to themselves and then still doing the work that goes alongside it, you know, but there's communities of women that function on just putting out positive affirmations to bring about what they believe that they deserve. Men function on earning what they deserve. You only get what you earn as far as a man, you know what I'm saying, is concerned in terms of his effort in the world. That's it. Like, that's like even in my book, man, disciplined men do disciplined things. Men focus on men. You have to become useful as a man, because nobody picks up the phone and calls useless men, you know, in general.
Yeah.
Like, we can't move and make the same choices in life and function on their value system and get masculine outcomes, whatever that looks like for us, you know, because you can't live your life expecting stuff to fall into your lap and somebody to come, you know what I'm saying, like just change your life just because you thought that's what you deserved.
Yeah. Can y'all?
You got an audio problem, you know. You got an audio problem.
Yeah, so you got an audio problem.
Yeah, like that is what I think about when I say value systems. These very short. That's why, like, man, like when I wrote my book, you know, I was talking about like life is binary. You can't make but one choice at a time. You know what I'm saying? So you got to make either a disciplined decision or an undisciplined decision. And if something is worth having and is rooted in principles, morals, boundaries, safety, protection, all of that stuff is more likely to occur in a healthy manner if it's functioning off of discipline. Undisciplined,
100% right about that. I definitely agree with you.
Discipline is the foundation of everything that you want to achieve. You can't show me something that you add discipline to and it gets worse.
So real quickly, you're going back to the main topic. How are you saying your emphasis on discipline affects the conversation at hand?
Because if a man comes in with his value system that's rooted in principles and effort, labor, time, things that he can audit, all of the stuff that's opposite to the value system of the things that women care about that you described, that's not going to be attractive.
Yeah,
it's
for
not
sure.
complimentary. They're going to want a guy that they're going to want the same kind of guy that Tracy Ellis Ross was describing.
Well, I'll say this. I see pros and cons on the discipline side. I see it as you're saying, if you're not a man who's disciplined and about your business and getting things, like being a man of accomplishment and a man of focus, it does lower your options in the dating pool to the point you're making. Conversely, I would say if you're a man who is very disciplined, especially intellectually and your values and stuff, it can cause even more challenges. One thing that I've noticed in the dating pool is that with guys who are more intellectually inept, meaning they don't care as much, their opinions aren't as strong, they're not rooted in a lot of resolute things. They can't lead somebody by showing people, you know, sustainable models, whether it's talking about religion or, you know, talking about science. Yeah, they're going off the vibe. Everything's free flowing. They're more relativistic in their perspective. Women may, in some ways, find that more attractive initially because
those
it is more like
daddies.
Yeah, those are how women typically think. More relativistic. Everything's equal. You know, let's not split hairs on the details, kind of a thing.
Those are their baby daddies.
Absolutely. So a man who's very disciplined intellectually can find himself running against his dating pool because these women have been trained in relativism and all roads lead to Rome and that everything's equal.
Now conservatives.
Yeah. Well, some other guys like, no, that's wrong. You know, the crystals, I know you got crystals in the home and you think it's warding off evil spirits, whatever the case may be, but he might be like, there's no scientific data to support that. I know you're in astrology, but I'm an astrophysicist, or I study astrophysicists with Lawrence Krauss and Dr. William Lane Craig, and all the astrophysicists are telling you that astrology is wrong. Then we go into the sociologists. Sociologists said they studied people that were born on the same day all the way up into their middle school, and they said that science doesn't suggest that there's any truth to astrology, or zodiacs and stuff like that. And so if a man that came with that type of intellectual discipline, that he's a man that likes to learn and curious and studies it from a scientific perspective, and he were to explain that to a lot of African American women out there who were steeply engulfed in those types of belief systems,
he wouldn't be attractive.
He might end up being less attractive, especially if he's already not necessarily the most attractive physically or financially.
Yeah, like the question, not the question, but like the I guess the second and third order effect of this gap in compatibility is that there's some men that fit everything that you just talked about, that care about being able to audit everything in the world to see if it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are never going to be seen attractive by those women, and so they end up becoming passport bros. They end up marrying out. Because they've been kind of excommunicated. You know what I'm saying? Like there's plenty of men, that black men, that may have the characteristics that make them attractive, but when they get down into character, there's a lot of black women that's not interested in that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, especially think about it too. There's a huge black.
So real quick, Victor, you can just in 2 minutes or less say whatever you're going to say and do your closing statements.
Yeah, like there's a huge black nerd community that's getting validation from each other, and if you can't fit into that, and then I don't know where you're going to go after that either, because the intellectual part is growing, but there's a huge push in anti-intellectualism that's putting people that care about intelligence on the outside as well.
Yeah, for sure. What else you got, Victor?
I'm good.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, you back, or you
go buy the book, man?
Everybody buy the book, Accountable Masculinity.
Yeah, I'm gonna
check it out.
We'll put a link for it in the chat, man. So, but yeah, identify the disciplined man in you.
Absolutely right. So what about yourself? Can you audio back good? No, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. So I guess you won't be closing out today. So what I want to say is in closing is I appreciate Victor and Dub, who came in, and Enos as well, for being on the show today. We covered a lot of different topics. We just kind of did a spitball, different topics that we saw people sent in. Most topics that I covered up today was stuff that was sent in by somebody, one or another, and we didn't have a lot of time in advance. But typically we don't to think about this stuff or really be able to formulate an idea. So the fact that these guys can come on here and just go off the top like that is a true testament to their diligence, to their craft, and the fact that they want to put on a good show. And for the audience out there, all the folks out there. So again, this show is about critical thinking and reason. Anybody who's seen Star Trek knows that the Vulcans were about logic and reason and critical thinking, and they got made fun of a little bit for not being the most emotionally. They didn't see emotions as super significant when it came to resolving certain things, and to some people that can look a little inhuman. Mm-hmm. But and I believe in both, a balance of both, but I do say that when it comes to solving problems, it's best to limit the impact that your emotion has on your ability to decipher and extrapolate, and focus more on those metrics and those tools that are going to help you. These are epistemologies, if you will. Epistemology is the study of how do we know what we know. So if you're trying to figure out how tall you are, you're gonna grab a ruler, or depending upon what part of the world you're in and whatever they use, their sticks are called. So you're gonna if you want to figure out your weight, you're gonna do it. You're gonna get a scale. These are different epistemologies used. If you want to figure something out about a certain plant, you're gonna use a scientific method. If you're in a courtroom and you want to figure out who's telling the truth and who's right or wrong, you're gonna have like a corroboration. You're gonna look into different methods like that's gonna help you decipher out the truth from the lie through cross-examining and other things of that nature. So these are all the different tools we go over, and these gentlemen were kind enough to share that with us today. And so we just want to say thanks, like, subscribe, and share. Victor, did you want to say your platform one more time?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube on Accountable Masculinity University. You can find me on Facebook, and you'll see internet. You can do a search for Internet Stepdaddy. It'll pull
Internet Stepdaddy.
Yeah. So that's
daddy's son.
Yeah, like, hey, for people that like to disagree, I usually tell them you just trying to be my stepson because that's how it's going.
Yeah. He gonna beat you like a. Never mind.
I think you stepped on, son.
Yeah. So Vulcan Soapbox, everybody appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in, and we out.
Bet.
I'm here to stand on my soapbox and proclaim that to the world.
On this show.
This is the hottest show on the planet right now.
What's the debate?
Ain't no debate.